The champagne hit my face like a cold slap of reality. There I stood in my grandmother's vintage wedding dress, dripping with expensive bubbles, while my younger sister Lauren held the empty flute high. "Here's to the family fraud in white," she announced to our 200 guests. My mother Margaret rushed to Lauren's side immediately. "She didn't mean it," she said loudly, wrapping her arm around my sister. The reception hall fell silent. I felt Daniel's hand squeeze mine as I stood there, champagne running down my carefully styled hair. This was supposed to be my perfect day. Instead, it became the moment I finally understood that 3 years of being my family's secret bank account had to end. The humiliation of that moment cut deep, but what hurt more was knowing the truth behind Lauren's cruel toast. For 3 years, I had been silently funding her Columbia University education at $80,000 per year, plus her Manhattan apartment, plus her designer wardrobe, all while she and our parents painted me as the selfish career woman to anyone who would listen. It started when I launched my tech consulting firm at 25. The business took off faster than I expected, and within 6 months I was earning more than both my parents combined. That's when the guilt trips began. Family helps family. My mother had said that day in my office, her eyes welling with tears. "Lauren's about to lose her spot at Columbia. Do you really want to be responsible for ruining your sister's future?" She made it sound so reasonable. "Just add them to my business account for emergencies." Lauren needed $75,000 by the end of the week, or Columbia would give her spot to someone on the wait list. My father, Harold, sat quietly in the corner, nodding along to everything Margaret said, which should have been my first warning sign. I remember writing that first check, telling myself it was just this once, but once became twice, then monthly, then constant. While I worked 90-hour weeks building my company, missing family dinners and holidays, they told our relatives I was too good for them now. "Anne-Marie thinks she's better than us," I overheard Margaret telling my aunt at Thanksgiving while I was in the bathroom. "She can't even be bothered to help with Lauren's education. Thank God we had some savings." Some savings. That was rich, considering I'd paid for everything from Lauren's meal plans to her spring break trips to Cabo. Every time I tried to discuss repayment, Margaret would clutch her chest and talk about her heart condition. "The stress of this conversation is too much," she'd say, and I'd back down, not wanting to be responsible for giving my mother a heart attack. Daniel knew something was wrong when we started dating 2 years ago. He'd ask why I looked so tired, why I was working such insane hours. I couldn't bring myself to tell him the truth. How could I explain that my family was bleeding me dry while simultaneously trash-talking me to everyone we knew? He came from such a normal, supportive family. His mother, Patricia, a retired judge, had raised him to believe that family meant mutual respect and support, not one-way financial drain. The wedding planning made everything worse. Margaret insisted on being involved in every decision despite not contributing a penny. She'd criticize my choices as excessive and showy to others, while privately demanding I upgrade Lauren's bridesmaid dress to a designer version that cost $3,000. "You don't want your sister looking cheap in the photos," she said. I paid for it. I paid for all of it. The flowers Margaret insisted on changing last minute. The extra 50 guests she added without asking. The rehearsal dinner at the country club because anything less would be embarrassing, all while maintaining the fiction that I was the selfish daughter who only cared about money. 3 days before the wedding, I made what I thought was my final payment to Columbia for Lauren's senior year. $80,000 transferred from my business account just like clockwork. I told myself that after she graduated, I could finally say no. I could finally stop enabling this toxic cycle. My wedding would be my fresh start with Daniel, my chance to build a life with someone who actually appreciated me. Standing there in that reception hall, champagne dripping onto my grandmother's pearl necklace, I realized how naive I'd been. The public humiliation was calculated. Lauren's toast wasn't a drunken mistake or moment of jealousy. This was my family showing me exactly what they thought of me, a fraud. Someone pretending to be part of a family that only saw me as an ATM. "I need a moment," I said quietly to Daniel, my voice surprisingly steady. The crowd parted as I walked toward the bridal suite, my soggy train dragging behind me. I could hear Margaret already making excuses to the guests, spinning the story to make me the villain who had pushed poor Lauren to her breaking point. But I was done being their victim, done being their secret keeper, done pretending we were a real family. As I closed the door to the bridal suite, I pulled out my phone. It was time to take control of my life, starting with every bank account they had access to. They wanted to call me a fraud in front of everyone I knew. Fine. Let them see what happened when the family bank closed for business. 6 a.m. came too soon, but I hadn't really slept anyway. Daniel lay beside me in our honeymoon suite, his breathing deep and even. I'd spent most of the night staring at the ceiling, replaying Lauren's performance over and over. But as dawn broke through the curtains, clarity came with it. I reached for my phone and opened my business banking app. What I found made my blood run cold. $45,000 in unauthorized withdrawals over the past 6 months. My hands shook as I scrolled through the transaction history. Bergdorf Goodman, $8,000. Saks, Fifth Avenue, $12,000. A Chelsea apartment deposit for $15,000 that definitely wasn't for Lauren's student housing. Weekend trips to Miami, designer handbags, jewelry from Tiffany's. Each transaction authorized using the emergency access I'd given my parents 3 years ago. Oh my God, I whispered, sitting up so fast the room spun. This wasn't just family taking advantage. This was theft, embezzlement from my company, the business I'd built with my own hands while they called me selfish. Daniel stirred beside me. Honey, what's wrong? I turned the phone toward him, unable to speak. His expression shifted from confusion to shock to anger as he processed what he was seeing. They stole from your company. 45,000, I managed to say. Just in the last 6 months. Who knows how much before that? I trusted them with emergency access, and they've been shopping at Bergdorf's. We need to call the police, Daniel said immediately, sitting up and reaching for his own phone. Wait, I said, though every instinct screamed to agree with him. I need to do something first. My fingers moved across the screen with purpose now. First, I froze the business account they had access to. Then I removed their authorization. Next came my personal checking and savings, frozen. Access revoked. The investment account I'd stupidly added Margaret to, in case something happened to me, frozen and locked down. Anne-Marie, Daniel said, gently watching me work, this is the right thing to do. I know, I said, moving on to the credit cards. There were 3 I'd authorized for emergencies over the years, all canceled, effective immediately. I'm just wondering how long it'll take them to notice. As if on cue, my phone buzzed. Lauren calling. I declined it. She called again immediately. Declined. Then Margaret. Declined. Within 5 minutes, my phone was lighting up like a Christmas tree. 27 missed calls between them before I finally turned off the ringer. Should we check out early? Daniel asked, already knowing the answer. Our honeymoon suite suddenly felt less like a romantic retreat and more like a fortress under siege. My mom's house, she'd love to have us, and you know she has excellent security. Patricia's house. The thought of my new mother-in-law's peaceful gated home sounded like heaven. A place where family meant support, not sabotage, where people said what they meant instead of performing for an audience. Let me check one more thing, I said, pulling up Columbia's payment portal. Sure enough, the $80,000 payment I'd made 3 days ago was still processing, still reversible. My finger hovered over the cancel button. 3 years of payments, and this would be the first one I stopped. They humiliated you at your own wedding, Daniel said quietly, reading my hesitation. In front of everyone we know, after stealing $45,000 from your business. He was right. I hit cancel. Payment reversal initiated. The screen confirmed it would be reversed by start of business Monday, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time to be exact. Done, I said, finally looking up from my phone. It's all done. Daniel pulled me close, and for the first time since Lauren threw that champagne, I let myself cry. Not the pretty, delicate tears you see in movies, but ugly, body-shaking sobs for the family I'd never really had. for the little girl who'd tried so hard to earn their love, for the woman who'd nearly bankrupted herself trying to buy their approval. "We should document everything," Daniel said when my tears finally slowed. "Screenshot all the unauthorized transactions. Save every text they send. My mom will know what to do legally." Of course, Patricia would know exactly how to handle this. A retired judge who'd spent 30 years seeing families torn apart by greed and deception. She'd warned me gently months ago that something seemed off about my family's dynamics. I'd brushed off her concerns too deep in denial to see what was right in front of me. "They're going to lose their minds," I said, stating the obvious. "Lauren's enrollment will be canceled. The apartment she's been hiding from me will want payment. Whatever else they've been funding with my money will come crashing down." "Good," Daniel said firmly. "Actions have consequences. It's time they learned that." As we packed our things to leave for Patricia's house, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years: relief. The weight of carrying my family's secrets and bills was lifting. Yes, there would be hell to pay. Yes, they would paint me as the villain to anyone who would listen. But for the first time in 3 years, I wasn't going to pay for their performance. The sun was fully up now, streaming through the windows of what should have been our romantic honeymoon suite. Instead of breakfast in bed and lazy morning kisses, we were documenting financial fraud and planning our escape. But somehow, with Daniel by my side and his mother's protection waiting for us, I felt more loved and supported than I ever had with the family I'd spent 3 years trying to save. "Ready?" Daniel asked, pulling our suitcases to the door. I took one last look around the room, then at my phone showing 47 missed calls now. "Ready?" 9:30 a.m. arrived with the precision of a Swiss watch. Daniel and I sat at Patricia's kitchen table. My laptop open to Columbia's payment portal, my phone face down beside it. Patricia had made her famous blueberry pancakes, but my stomach was too knotted to eat. We all knew what was about to happen. "Payment reversal complete" flashed across the screen at exactly 9:32. My phone exploded into life, vibrating so hard it skittered across the granite countertop. Lauren's face filled the screen, then Margaret's, then Lauren again. I let it ring. "Should we answer?" Daniel asked, though his expression suggested he already knew my answer. "Not yet," Patricia said, her judge's instincts still sharp. "Let them leave voicemails. Everything they say in anger right now becomes evidence later." The calls continued for 20 minutes straight, then suddenly silence. That worried me more than the constant ringing. I reached for the phone just as it buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Columbia just called. I've been disenrolled. Fix this now, or I swear to God, Anna Marie, I will destroy you." "Well," Patricia said, reading over my shoulder, "that's a direct threat in writing. How convenient." The phone rang again. This time it was a number I didn't recognize with a Manhattan area code. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Miss Williams," a professional male voice. "This is Robert Chen from Bradshaw, Klein & Associates. I'm calling regarding Lauren Williams, who listed you as her financial guarantor for her summer internship position." My blood ran cold. Her internship. Yes, the position was contingent upon her maintaining enrollment at Columbia University. We've just received notice that she's no longer an enrolled student. I'm calling to inform you that her offer has been rescinded, effective immediately. Additionally, the housing stipend we advanced her last month will need to be returned within 30 days. Housing stipend. I echoed, my mind racing. How much? $15,000 for the summer term. The details were in the guarantor agreement you signed. I hadn't signed any guarantor agreement. "Mr. Chen, I think there's been a mistake. I never signed anything regarding an internship or housing stipend." A pause. "I have your signature right here, dated March 15th. Would you like me to email you a copy?" "Yes, please." I gave him my email address, my hands shaking. Forgery. They'd forged my signature for an internship I knew nothing about. The email arrived within minutes. There it was, a signature that looked like mine but wasn't guaranteeing financial responsibility for Lauren's internship expenses. Patricia leaned over to study it. "That's a federal crime," she said quietly. "Wire fraud, forgery, identity theft. This just became much more serious than family drama." My phone rang again. This time it was from another unknown number, also with Manhattan area code. I put it on speaker. "Is this Anne-Marie Williams?" A woman's voice, sharp and impatient. "Yes. This is Hartley Property Management. I'm calling about Unit 1512 in our Chelsea building. Lauren Williams listed you as her guarantor, and we've just received notice that her payment for this month bounced. Per the lease agreement, you co-signed payment in full is due within 48 hours or will begin eviction proceedings." Another lease I hadn't signed. "How much is the monthly rent?" $4,500. But with the bounced payment fee and late charges, she'll need to pay $5,200 by Monday at 5 p.m. I muted the phone and looked at Patricia. She was already taking notes, her expression grim. "Ask for a copy of the lease," she whispered. "Can you email me a copy of this lease agreement?" I asked. "Of course, though you should have kept your copy from when you signed it." After I hung up, we sat in silence for a moment. The forgeries were piling up, the internship, the apartment. Who knew what else they'd signed my name to? The voicemails had accumulated while I was on the calls. 37 new messages. I put the phone on speaker and played the first one. Margaret's voice filled the kitchen, shrill and accusing. "How dare you destroy your sister's future? She's being thrown out of Columbia because of your petty revenge. You're going to fix this right now, or I'll tell everyone what kind of person you really are. A selfish witch who ruins lives. Call me back immediately." The second was from Lauren, sobbing dramatically. "I can't believe you'd do this to me. My whole life is ruined. I'm going to be homeless. My career is over before it started. You're supposed to be my sister. How could you be so cruel?" The third was Margaret again, her tone shifting to manipulation. "Sweetheart, I know you're upset about last night, but destroying Lauren's education isn't the answer. Family forgives family. Let's talk about this like adults. Don't do something you'll regret forever." Patricia stopped the playback. "That's enough for now. We need to contact the FBI." "The FBI," Daniel and I said in unison. "Interstate wire fraud, identity, theft, forgery, crossing state lines." Patricia ticked off on her fingers. "This is federal jurisdiction, and if they've done this to you, I'd bet money you're not their only victim." As if to underscore her point, my phone buzzed with an email, the lease agreement from Hartley Property Management. I opened it, and there was my signature again, dated 6 months ago. The apartment I'd been supposedly guaranteeing was a luxury 2-bedroom in Chelsea, complete with doorman and rooftop pool. 5,000 square feet, Daniel read in disbelief. "That's bigger than our actual apartment." Another email arrived, this one from a car dealership. "Regarding the BMW lease under your guarantor agreement." A BMW. Of course there was a BMW. How deep does this go? I whispered, feeling overwhelmed. Every notification brought new evidence of their betrayal, new forged documents, new financial obligations I supposedly agreed to. Patricia placed her hand over mine. "Deep enough that they've committed multiple felonies. But here's what's important. You're not responsible for any of it. Forged signatures don't create real obligations. And now that we know what they've done, we can protect you properly." My phone rang again. Harold this time. My father, who'd sat silently while Margaret manipulated me, who'd nodded along to every guilt trip. I almost didn't answer, but Patricia nodded encouragingly. "Hello, Dad." "Annie." His voice sounded strange, slurred. "You need to fix this. Your mother, she's not well. The stress, her heart. Please just pay Lauren's tuition. We'll figure out the rest later." "Dad, are you okay? You sound—" "I'm fine. Too loud, too fast. Just fix this, Annie, before your mother has another episode. You know how she gets. You know what could happen." He hung up before I could respond. I stared at the phone, unease crawling up my spine. Something was very wrong with my father, and it wasn't just about the money. "We need to move fast," Patricia said, already pulling out her contacts. "I have a friend at the FBI who specializes in financial crimes. The fact that your father sounds impaired during this situation raises additional red flags." As she made calls and Daniel pulled me close, I thought about the family I'd tried so hard to hold together. Every sacrifice I'd made, every hour I'd worked to pay their bills, every insult I'd endured while keeping their secrets. And for what? So they could steal more, forge my name, threaten to destroy me when I finally said enough. The unraveling had begun, but I was starting to realize it wasn't my life falling apart. It was theirs. The house of cards they'd built on my money and my silence was collapsing, and for the first time in 3 years, I wasn't going to be the one to catch it. The text came at 3 p.m. "Family meeting, our house, 6 p.m. Come alone or we call the police about your embezzlement from Lauren's trust fund. Mom." I stared at the message, reading it 3 times to make sure I understood correctly. They were accusing me of embezzlement from a trust fund I didn't even know existed. "Absolutely not," Daniel said immediately. "You're not going there alone." "She's bluffing," Patricia added, but her expression was thoughtful. "Though the mention of a trust fund is interesting. What trust fund?" That was the million-dollar question. In all my years of paying for everything, no one had ever mentioned Lauren having a trust fund. If she had money of her own, why was I bankrupting myself to pay her bills? "I have to go," I said finally. Both Daniel and Patricia started to protest, but I held up my hand. "With recording equipment, and you'll both be in the car outside. But I need to know what they're planning. That threat about embezzlement isn't random." Patricia nodded slowly. "I can have you wired up properly, full audio and video recording. But the moment anything feels dangerous, you leave. No arguments." The next 3 hours passed in a blur of preparation. Patricia called in favors to get professional recording equipment. Daniel insisted on checking the house's layout on Google Maps, planning escape routes, like we were in some spy movie. Part of me wanted to laugh at the absurdity, but the forged document spread across Patricia's dining table killed any humor. At 5:45, we pulled up outside my childhood home, the same Tudor-style house where I'd grown up feeling like an outsider, where I'd watched Lauren get everything while being told I should be grateful for hand-me-downs, where I'd announced my business success only to be immediately asked for money. "Remember," Patricia said, adjusting the tiny camera hidden in my necklace, "everything they say is being recorded. Don't mention the recording. Let them talk. The more they say, the better." I walked up the familiar pathway, noting the new landscaping I'd paid for last summer. The front door opened before I could knock. Harold stood there, swaying slightly, his eyes unfocused. "Annie," he said, his voice still carrying that strange slur from earlier. "Come in. Your mother's waiting in the living room." The house smelled different, stale, like windows hadn't been opened in weeks. I followed Harold down the hallway lined with family photos. There I was at 5, standing apart while Lauren sat on Margaret's lap. At 10, hovering at the edge while they embraced. At 18, already looking like I didn't quite belong. Margaret sat in her favorite wingback chair like a queen holding court. Lauren paced by the fireplace, her usually perfect appearance disheveled. Her designer clothes looked slept in. Her face was blotchy from crying. "Sit," Margaret commanded, pointing to the couch. I sat, noting how Harold collapsed into his recliner with unusual heaviness. "You've destroyed everything," Margaret began without preamble. "Your sister is homeless. Her career is ruined. And for what? Because she said some silly words at your wedding. She threw a drink in my face and called me a fraud," I said evenly, "after I've paid over $200,000 for her education." "That money was ours," Lauren exploded. "From my trust fund that you've been stealing from—" There it was, the trust fund accusation. I kept my expression neutral. "What trust fund?" Margaret smiled, but it was sharp predatory. "Don't play dumb, Anne-Marie. We know you've had access to Lauren's inheritance all along. The private investigator we hired found everything." "What inheritance?" I asked, genuinely confused now. "What private investigator?" The one who discovered you've been siphoning money from the trust Lauren's godparents left her, Margaret said smoothly. $200,000 mysteriously vanished over 3 years, the exact amount you claim to have spent on her education. Quite a coincidence. I felt like I'd entered an alternate reality. You told me Lauren needed money for Columbia. You begged me to pay. I have the emails, the texts, the banking records showing transfers from my business account. Falsified. Margaret waved her hand dismissively. Just like you falsified being part of this family. What? Harold tried to speak, but Margaret shot him a look that silenced him. He sank deeper into his recliner. His breathing labored. We know the truth about your adoption, Margaret continued. Or should I say lack thereof. You were never legally part of this family. Just a foster child we kept around for the monthly checks. And now you think you can waltz in here and destroy Lauren's life? Our real daughter, the room spun. Foster child, monthly checks, never legally adopted. The words crashed over me like waves, each one threatening to pull me under. You told me I was adopted when I was 3, I whispered. You said my birth parents died. You said you chose me. We told you what you needed to hear. Margaret shrugged. Just like we're telling Lauren what she needs to hear now, that her trust fund exists and you stole it. Mom, Lauren's voice cracked. What are you talking about? What trust fund you said Anne-Marie had to pay because we were broke. Margaret's mask slipped for just a moment, annoyance flashing across her face. Lauren, dear, let Mommy handle this. No. Lauren stopped pacing, turning to face Margaret fully. What do you mean foster child monthly checks? What the hell is going on? Language, Lauren, Margaret snapped. This doesn't concern you. It doesn't concern me. Lauren's voice rose hysterically. I'm homeless. Columbia kicked me out. My internship is gone and you're playing some sick game about trust funds that don't exist. Harold made a sound somewhere between a laugh and a sob. We all turned to look at him. His face was flushed sweat beading on his forehead despite the cool room. Tell them, he slurred. Tell them about the restaurant, about the loan, about what you made me sign. Harold, Margaret's voice carried a warning. You're not well. Your medication... The medication you give me? Harold laughed bitterly. The pills that make everything foggy, tell them, Margaret. Tell our daughters what you've done. Dad. I moved toward him, but Margaret stood quickly blocking my path. He's confused, she said coldly. Early onset dementia. Very sad. Another burden I've had to bear while you lived your selfish life. Harold struggled to his feet, gripping the armrest for support. She forged your signature, Annie, used it to get a loan, $200,000, for a restaurant that never existed. The bank, they're coming after you, after your assets. She planned it all. Shut up, Harold! Margaret shrieked, her composed facade finally cracking completely. But Harold continued, words tumbling out like he'd been holding them back for years. She never adopted you legally, kept you as a foster kid for the checks. 18 years of checks. Spent them on Lauren while you wore thrift store clothes. And Lauren, tell her about Lauren's real parents, Margaret. Tell her about your sister, about the car accident, about the money. Lauren had gone very still, her face pale. What about my real parents? Margaret's face contorted with rage. You stupid man, you've ruined everything! She lunged for Harold, but I stepped between them. For the first time in my life, I physically stood up to my mother. She stumbled back, shock replacing anger on her face. Enough, I said quietly. I'm done. Whatever sick game this is, I'm done playing. You can't leave. Margaret recovered quickly, her voice turning threatening again. I'll call the police. I'll tell them about the embezzlement. I have documents proving you had access to Lauren's trust. Forged documents, I asked. Like the lease agreements, the internship guarantee, the loan application. Yes, I know about all of it, and so does the FBI. The color drained from Margaret's face. You're lying. Patricia Vanderberg is my mother-in-law, retired federal judge. She's outside right now with her contacts from the Bureau. Every forged document, every fraudulent transaction, every lie you've told today is being investigated and recorded. I touched my necklace lightly, watching understanding dawn in Margaret's eyes. You recorded this. Her voice was barely a whisper. Every word, I confirmed, including your confession about the foster care fraud, the forged signatures, the fake trust fund story, all of it. Lauren sank onto the couch, looking broken. So there's no trust fund, no inheritance. You've been lying to everyone. Harold laughed again, the sound hollow and sad. She lies like breathing Lauren, always has. But Annie here, she told the truth. Paid your bills even while we treated her like garbage. And look how we repaid her. Dad, I said gently, come with me. We can get you help, real medical care, away from whatever she's been giving you. He shook his head slowly. I'm as guilty as she is Annie. I let it happen. Signed papers, stayed quiet, took the easy way out every time. I don't deserve your help. Everyone deserves help, I said, meaning it. Even after everything, you're still my father, the only one I've ever known. Margaret laughed, the sound sharp and cruel. How pathetically noble. Fine, take him. Take your pathetic father and get out of my house. But this isn't over. I'll find a way to destroy you, Anne-Marie. You've ruined everything, and I'll make you pay. The only one who's going to pay is you, I said calmly. Federal prison, most likely, for fraud, forgery, identity theft, and whatever you've been doing to Dad. Patricia says you're looking at 25 years minimum. As if on cue, my phone buzzed. Daniel texting that the FBI had arrived. Perfect timing. I helped Harold toward the door, his weight heavy against my side. Behind us, Lauren sobbed while Margaret raged, throwing accusations and threats that no longer had any power over me. At the threshold, I turned back one last time. I loved you, I said to the room at large. All of you. Despite everything, I loved you and tried to help. Remember that when you're looking for someone to blame. Then I walked out of my childhood home for the last time, supporting the broken man who'd raised me, while sirens began to wail in the distance. The family meeting had revealed more than anyone expected, but at least now, finally, everyone knew the truth. The FBI agents had been gentle with Harold, seeing his condition clearly. They transported him to the hospital while Patricia and I followed. Daniel stayed behind to deal with the agents processing the scene at the house. In the emergency room waiting area, Patricia sat beside me, her hand on my shoulder. Foster care fraud is more common than people think, she said quietly, but 18 years of it with the elaborate adoption story that takes dedication to deception. The word adoption still stung. My whole life built on a lie. Every birthday when Margaret would tell the story of choosing me from the agency. Every time she'd say I should be grateful they'd given me a home. All of it false. Dr. Sarah Chen approached us 2 hours later, her expression professionally neutral, but kind. Mr. Williams is stable. We've run toxicology screens and found high levels of benzodiazepines in his system, medications that when improperly administered can cause confusion and compliance. She was drugging him, I said flatly. It wasn't a question. That's for law enforcement to determine, Dr. Chen replied carefully. But he's asking for you. He's lucid now that we've started flushing his system. He says he has information you need to know. Harold looked smaller in the hospital bed, older than his 62 years. His eyes were clearer, though, focusing on me with an intensity I hadn't seen in years. Annie, he said, reaching for my hand, I'm so sorry for all of it. Just tell me the truth, I said, squeezing his fingers gently. All of it. He took a shaky breath. You were 3 when you came to us. Emergency placement. Your birth mother was 17, gave you up, but wanted updates. Margaret saw dollar signs immediately. $700 a month from the state, plus clothing allowance, plus medical coverage. But the adoption story made it up. Told everyone we'd adopted you to look like heroes. But keeping you as a foster child meant the checks kept coming. 18 years of checks, Annie. Over $150,000 that was supposed to be for your care. I felt Patricia tense beside me, her legal mind calculating the fraud. Harold continued, his voice stronger now. Your birth mother, she tried to contact you when you turned 18. Sent letters. Margaret intercepted them all. Burned them. Said you didn't need that trash in your life. She tried to find me. My voice cracked. Every year on your birthday, Christmas too, Margaret would laugh about it, calling her pathetic, but she kept cashing those foster checks until the day you aged out of the system. What about Lauren? I had to know. What Dad said about her real parents. Harold closed his eyes. Margaret's younger sister, Diana, married rich investment banker husband, died in that car crash when Lauren was 2. Left everything in trust for Lauren, with Margaret as trustee. How much? $2 million. Maybe more now with interest. Margaret's been bleeding it dry for 20 years. Private schools, vacations, clothes, that house renovation. All from Lauren's trust while telling everyone we were broke. Oh my God, I breathed. $2 million. Lauren had $2 million and Margaret made me pay for everything. That's why she needed you to pay for Columbia, Harold explained. The trust lawyers were starting to ask questions, wanted detailed accountings. If they found out Margaret had been stealing, she'd go to prison. So she made you pay instead, kept the trust money hidden. Patricia was recording everything on her phone now with Harold's permission. This was evidence of crimes spanning decades. The restaurant loan, I prompted. No restaurant, just debt. Margaret's gambling debts. She goes to Atlantic City when you think she's visiting her cousin. Owes some dangerous people money. Forged your signature because your credit is perfect and mine's destroyed. Each revelation felt like another knife wound. The mother who'd raised me wasn't just cold or manipulative. She was a criminal who'd built her entire life on fraud. Why didn't you stop her? I asked, though I already suspected the answer. Tried once, when you were 16. Told her I was going to tell you the truth. Woke up in the hospital 3 days later. She said I'd had a heart episode. Started giving me medication after that. For my nerves, she said. Made me compliant, foggy, easier to control. She's been drugging you for 12 years. Only when I showed signs of rebellion. Upped the doses recently when I started recording her conversations. Didn't know if I'd ever get the courage to use them, but I knew someday someone would need proof. He reached under his pillow, pulling out an old iPhone. Everything's on here. 3 years of recordings. Her admitting to the foster fraud, the trust theft, planning to frame you for embezzlement, even discussing hiring someone to plant drugs in your office if you ever cut them off. Patricia took the phone carefully like it was made of gold. Harold, this is evidence of conspiracy to commit multiple felonies. You're going to need your own lawyer. I know, he said simply. I'm ready to face what I've done, or didn't do. Annie deserves the truth. Both girls do. Lauren, I realized suddenly, she doesn't know any of this. She genuinely thought I was obligated to pay for everything. Margaret raised her to be a weapon against you, Harold confirmed. Every story about your selfishness, every complaint about money, all calculated to make Lauren resent you. Meanwhile, she was spending Lauren's own inheritance. A knock on the door interrupted us. An FBI agent entered, followed by someone I didn't expect to see. Lauren mascara streaked and shaking. They let me come see Dad, she said quietly. Mom's been arrested. They're searching the house. Her eyes met mine. Is it true? All of it? I nodded, not trusting my voice. Lauren sank into the chair on Harold's other side. The agents showed me some papers, trust documents with my name, bank statements showing millions. She laughed bitterly. I've been hating you for being rich and selfish when I had $2 million I didn't even know about. Margaret stole from both of you, Patricia said gently. Anne-Marie through manipulation and forgery. You through trust fund fraud. Both of you are victims here. I threw champagne in your face, Lauren whispered, looking at me. Called you a fraud, in front of everyone, and the whole time I was the one living a lie. You didn't know, I said, meaning it. She raised us both to play roles in her sick drama. Neither of us knew the truth. Harold reached for Lauren's hand with his free one, so he was holding both his daughters. I failed you both. Let her poison you against each other. Let her steal your childhoods, your money, your relationship as sisters. I'll spend whatever time I have left trying to make amends. The trust, Lauren said suddenly. If there's anything left, I want to pay you back. Every penny you spent on my education. It was my money she should have used. I shook my head. Let's figure out the legal stuff first. Make sure you're protected. Margaret might have accomplices' other accounts we don't know about. Already on it, Patricia said, typing rapidly on her phone. I have a colleague who specializes in trust recovery. We'll freeze everything tonight. The next few hours blurred together. FBI agents came and went. Lawyers were called. Harold gave formal statements about decades of fraud. Lauren discovered the true extent of her mother's betrayal as document after document revealed the stolen fortune that should have been hers. As dawn broke over the hospital windows, Lauren and I found ourselves alone in the cafeteria, nursing terrible coffee and processing the night's revelations. I don't even know who I am anymore, Lauren said quietly. Everything I believed about our family, about you, about myself, all lies. You're still you, I said carefully. Still brilliant, still accomplished. Columbia accepted you on your own merits, not because of money. Money you paid for, while I called you selfish behind your back. She stared into her coffee. How do you not hate me? Because Margaret programmed you to hurt me just like she programmed me to enable it. We were both weapons in her war against the truth. I hesitated, then added, but we don't have to be anymore. Lauren looked up, tears streaming down her face. I want my sister back, my real sister. Not the enemy Mom created in my head, the one who paid my tuition while I insulted her, the one who's still here even after I humiliated her at her wedding. Can we start over? I thought about the little girl in those family photos always standing apart, the teenager who ate dinner alone while they laughed in the other room, the woman who gave everything and got mockery in return. That person wanted to say no to protect herself from more hurt. But I also thought about Patricia's words. We were both victims, both stolen from, both denied the truth of who we were and who we could be to each other. Starting over sounds good, I said finally. Hi, I'm Anne-Marie. I've been paying your bills, but I'd rather be your sister. Lauren cried an ugly sound that was somehow beautiful in its honesty. Hi, I'm Lauren. I've been a complete bitch, but I'd like to be your sister too. It wasn't forgiveness exactly. Too much had happened for instant absolution, but it was a beginning. Two women raised on lies, choosing to build something true. As the sunrise painted the hospital cafeteria gold, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Hope. Not for the family I'd lost, but for the one we might build from the ashes of Margaret's deception. 3 days later, Patricia's colleague had uncovered more than we ever imagined. I sat in the conference room of Hartley, Kellerman and Associates, surrounded by bankers' boxes of evidence. Lauren sat across from me, her face pale as she processed each new revelation. The trust fund is actually larger than Harold knew, Attorney Michael Hartley explained, sliding documents across the table. Diana and Robert Chen left their daughter $2.3 million when they died in that accident 20 years ago. With proper investment growth, it should be worth over $5 million today. Should be, Lauren's voice was hollow. Current balance is approximately $400,000, Michael continued gently. We've tracked systematic withdrawals over 2 decades. Margaret was clever, never took enough at once to trigger federal reporting, but the pattern is clear. My phone buzzed with a text from the private investigator Patricia had hired. Can you meet today? Found something about your birth mother. Important. I showed Patricia the message. She nodded immediately. Michael, can you continue with Lauren? I'll accompany Anne-Marie. An hour later, we sat across from James Morrison, a former FBI agent turned private investigator. His office was sparse but professional, the desk between us covered with files and photographs. Your birth mother's name is Susan Elizabeth Hartwell. He began without preamble. Now, Dr. Susan Hartwell, she's a pediatric surgeon at Boston Children's Hospital. He slid a photograph across the desk. A woman in her late 40s with kind eyes and my exact nose stared back at me. She wore scrubs and was surrounded by smiling children in a hospital ward. She was 17 when she had you, James continued. Star student, full scholarship to Princeton waiting. Her parents forced the pregnancy to be hidden. She spent 9 months at a home for unwed mothers in Pennsylvania. But she wanted to keep me, I asked, touching the photo gently. Desperately. But her parents threatened to disown her, withdraw all support. She was 17 with no resources. The foster system promised updates, photos, a chance to reconnect when you turned 18. He pulled out a thick folder. She wrote to you twice a year, every year, sent Christmas and birthday cards, all returned or ignored by Margaret Williams. Patricia took the folder, flipping through years of unopened letters, cards addressed to My Sweet Annie, photos of Susan through the years, graduation from Princeton, medical school, her wedding, always with a space beside her where I might have been. There's more, James said carefully. Susan hired investigators over the years trying to find you, but Margaret was careful, moved you to different school districts, changed your last name informally to Williams without legal documentation, created a maze of false trails. She's looking for me. My voice cracked. Never stopped. Has a Google alert for your name. That's how she found out about your wedding. He pulled out a printed screenshot. She wrote about it on a private blog she keeps, about seeing the announcement in the Times, how beautiful you looked, how proud she was of your business success, how much she wished she could have been there. I couldn't speak. Tears ran down my face as I read words from the mother I'd never known existed until a week ago. There's something else, James said. Something that changes everything. Lauren isn't the only one with an inheritance Margaret stole. My head snapped up. What? Susan's parents, your biological grandparents, Richard and Elizabeth Morrison. Yes, Morrison, like my last name. Richard was my uncle. He paused, letting that sink in. They died 5 years ago, left their estate to their only grandchild, you. Patricia leaned forward. How much? $8 million, plus properties in Boston and Martha's Vineyard. They regretted forcing Susan to give you up, spent their final years trying to make amends. The will specifically states the inheritance was their way of apologizing for denying you your mother. $8 million. I couldn't process it, but I never received anything. Because Margaret intercepted that too. The lawyers sent notices to your last known address, the Williams house. Margaret responded claiming you had died in a car accident, provided a death certificate. She faked my death, I gasped. James nodded grimly. Forged document. We've already notified the authorities. The estate went to the secondary beneficiary instead, a charity. But with proof you're alive and evidence of Margaret's fraud, the will can be executed properly. That's why she was so desperate, Patricia realized. Why she escalated to framing Anne-Marie for embezzlement. She knew eventually someone would discover the inheritance fraud. My phone rang. Lauren. I answered on speaker. Annie, you need to get back here. Michael found something. Mom wasn't just stealing from my trust. She's been collecting life insurance policies. Life insurance. On both of us. Millions in policies. And get this. She's the sole beneficiary. The applications were filed 6 months ago, right when she started increasing Dad's medication. Patricia and I exchanged horrified looks. Life insurance policies on both daughters, Harold being drugged into compliance, the escalating threats. We're on our way, I said. Don't go anywhere alone. As James gathered the documents, he paused. Anne-Marie, would you like me to contact Susan? Let her know you're alive and well? I thought of the woman in scrubs surrounded by sick children she helped heal, the teenage mother who'd wanted to keep me, who'd written faithfully for 25 years despite silence. Yes, I said quietly. Tell her. Tell her I'd like to meet her when all this is over, when it's safe. He smiled the first warmth he'd shown. She'll be overjoyed. She never believed you were dead, you know. Said a mother would feel it if her child was gone. The drive back to Michael's office was silent, each of us processing the magnitude of Margaret's crimes. Foster fraud, trust theft, inheritance fraud, falsifying death certificates, and now life insurance policies that suggested something even darker. Lauren waited in the conference room surrounded by even more boxes. Her face was grim. Michael found 17 different accounts Mom created using variations of our names. She's been preparing for years, moving money offshore. And Annie, the life insurance policies have accelerating benefit clauses. Which means, though I feared I already knew, she could collect partial payment if either of us became terminally ill or had a serious accident. Lauren's voice shook. The policies are worth $3 million each. She'd get $6 million if something happened to both of us. That's why she was drugging Harold, Patricia said slowly. Practice, working up to something worse. My blood ran cold, remembering Margaret's final words. I'll find a way to destroy you. Had she meant more than reputation, more than financial ruin? Michael entered with 2 FBI agents. Ladies, given these discoveries, we're placing you both in protective custody until Margaret's full network is uncovered. We have reason to believe she may have associates we haven't identified yet. As we processed what our lives had become, Lauren reached across the table and took my hand. We're going to survive this. Together. Real sisters this time. I squeezed back, thinking of all the stolen years, all the lies, all the pain, but also thinking of Susan Hartwell, who never stopped looking, of Harold finally free from chemical chains, of the truth, messy and painful, but finally in the light. Margaret had stolen money, identities, and relationships, but she hadn't stolen our futures, those we would reclaim ourselves. The safe house felt like a prison after 5 days. Lauren and I had adjoining rooms in an FBI-secured facility outside Philadelphia. We spent our time giving statements, reviewing documents, and slowly learning to be sisters without Margaret's poison between us. On the 6th morning, Patricia arrived with news that changed everything. We found the emails, she announced, spreading printed pages across the dining table. Margaret's secondary email account. 3 years of correspondence that reveals the full scope of her plans. I picked up the first email dated 3 months before I started my business. Margaret writing to someone named Aunt Helen, Anne-Marie's getting too independent. Starting this company will ruin everything. I need to get control before she realizes what she's worth. Aunt Helen, Lauren frowned. Mom always said her sister Helen died young. Another lie, Patricia confirmed. Helen Martinez lives in Newark. We've tracked 63 emails between them discussing strategies to undermine Anne-Marie, manipulate family members, and build a legal case for elder abuse. The emails painted a horrifying picture. Margaret had been systematically poisoning relationships for years, telling cousins I'd stolen from the family business, informing aunts that I refused to help with Lauren's medical bills that didn't exist, creating elaborate stories about my cruelty while living off my money. This one's from last month, Lauren said, her voice shaking. She read aloud, "The wedding is perfect timing. Lauren's toast will destroy A's credibility. When she retaliates by cutting off funds, we'll have dozens of witnesses to her vindictive nature. The elder abuse lawsuit will be a slam dunk." She planned the whole thing, I breathed. Your toast, my reaction, all of it. I was her weapon, Lauren said bitterly, programmed to humiliate you on cue. Patricia pulled out another folder. There's more. We found correspondence with a Dr. Marcus Webb, psychiatrist who lost his license for over-medicating patients. He's been providing the drugs she used on Harold. The emails with Dr. Webb were even more chilling. Discussions about dosages, effects, how to create compliance without obvious impairment, and worse questions about stronger options dated just 2 weeks ago. She was escalating, Patricia said quietly. These last emails discuss medications that could induce heart problems, make an accident look natural. My phone rang, interrupting the horror show. Unknown number, but the FBI agents nodded for me to answer. They were recording everything. "Hello." "You destroyed everything." Margaret's voice cold and controlled. Not the shrieking harridan from our last encounter. This was scarier. 25 years of careful planning gone because you couldn't just play your role. "Margaret, where are you?" I kept my voice steady, though my hands shook. "Close enough. Did you really think the FBI could protect you? That Patricia's connections mean anything? You have no idea how many people owe me favors, how many allies I've cultivated while you were playing successful businesswoman." "Turn yourself in," I said. "It's over. We know about the foster fraud, the trust theft, Susan Hartwell, my grandparents' inheritance. All of it." She laughed, the sound raising goosebumps on my arms. Susan Hartwell, that pathetic girl who couldn't even keep her own baby. Did you know she begged me to let her see you when you turned 5, showed up at the house crying? I told her you died. The look on her face was priceless. Rage flooded through me, but I controlled it. The agents were gesturing to keep her talking. "Why?" I asked simply. "Why all of this?" "Because I could. Because taking that crying infant and turning her into my personal ATM was the smartest thing I ever did. Do you know how much money I made off you over the years? Foster payments, your grandparents, inheritance guilt payments from Susan's family, and then you had to grow a spine. The life insurance policies," I said. "Were you really going to kill us?" Another laugh. "Kill you so crude. Accidents happen, Annie. Lauren's cocaine problem getting out of hand. Your brake lines wearing through at just the wrong moment. Harold's medication interaction causing cardiac arrest. All tragedies, but that's life." "Lauren doesn't have a cocaine problem," I protested. "Not yet, but a few months of the right drugs slipped into her food, some planted evidence, a concerned mother trying to get her help. These things right themselves." Lauren had gone pale beside me, her hand clutching mine. "Here's what's going to happen," Margaret continued. "You're going to wire $5 million to an account I'll provide. Then you're going to sign documents admitting to embezzling from Lauren's trust. Take responsibility for everything. In exchange, I disappear. Everyone lives. And if I refuse, then I'll have to activate Plan B. Did you check your coffee this morning? Annie, sure it tasted normal." My blood turned to ice. The coffee. I'd made it myself, but "The creamer," she said, as if reading my thoughts. "Amazing what can be delivered to an FBI safe house by someone in a food service uniform. Don't worry, it's not fatal. Yet. But you'll start feeling dizzy soon, nauseous. By tonight you'll be in the hospital. By tomorrow, organ failure. Unless you get the antidote." Patricia was already on her phone calling for medical. The agents burst into action, one radioing for immediate transport, while another traced the call. "You're bluffing," I said, though my mouth had gone dry. "Am I? How's your vision getting a bit blurry around the edges? That's stage 1. 12 hours until permanent damage. 24 until death. Your choice, Annie. 5 million and a confession or a very painful goodbye." The room was spinning. No, wait. That was panic, not poison. I forced myself to think clearly. "Even if I wanted to, I can't access 5 million immediately," I said. "The accounts are frozen. Patricia can unfreeze them. She's done it before for her precious clients. You have 6 hours to decide. I'll call back with account details." The line went dead. "Medical's 2 minutes out," an agent reported. "We've got the cell tower location. She's within a 5-mile radius." "The creamer," Lauren said suddenly. "Annie didn't use creamer. She drinks her coffee black. I'm the one who used it." We all turned to stare at her. She was right. In the chaos of the morning briefing, I'd made coffee for everyone. Lauren always took hers with vanilla creamer. I'd watched her at it. "Oh, God," I breathed. "Lauren, how do you feel?" "Fine," she said, but her voice wavered. "Maybe a little warm, but that could be panic." The medical team burst in then, equipment in hand. They immediately began examining Lauren while Patricia coordinated with the FBI task force hunting Margaret. Blood pressure's elevated. Whoa, the EMT reported. Pulse is rapid. Could be anxiety, could be something else. We need to get her to a hospital for toxicology screening. I'm going with her, I said immediately. No, the lead agent said firmly. Margaret's still out there. She targeted you, not Lauren. This might be a ploy to draw you into the open. I don't care, she's my sister. Lauren squeezed my hand weakly. Annie, no. Stay safe. This is what she wants, to flush you out. But I was done hiding, done letting Margaret control the board. She poisoned the wrong daughter. Her perfect plan just fell apart. She's desperate now, which means she'll make mistakes. As the EMTs loaded Lauren onto a stretcher, I made my decision. I'll go to the hospital. When she calls back, I'll agree to her terms, but we'll be ready. Patricia nodded slowly. A trap. She thinks she's won, thinks I'll do anything to save Lauren, and she's right. But she doesn't know we found Helen Martinez, or Dr. Webb, or that the FBI has been tracking her finances for days. Let her think she's in control. The lead agent considered this. It's risky. Everything about my family has been risky, I said, following Lauren's stretcher. But this ends today. 25 years of games of lies of theft. Today we finish it. As the ambulance wailed toward the hospital, I held Lauren's hand and thought about Susan Hartwell, saving other people's children because she couldn't save her own. About Harold slowly awakening from years of chemical fog. About two little girls raised as weapons against each other. Margaret had created her own downfall. In trying to poison me, she'd hurt the daughter she'd always claimed to favor. Her mask hadn't just slipped, it had shattered completely. Annie, Lauren whispered as the EMTs worked, if something happens... Nothing's going to happen, I said firmly. We're both walking away from this. Free. Together. She managed a weak smile. When this is over, I want to meet Susan, our other mother, the one who actually loved you. We'll meet her together, I promised. A real family, the one we choose. The hospital loomed ahead, and with it, the final confrontation with the woman who'd stolen our lives. But for the first time, I wasn't afraid. Margaret had taught us to be survivors. Now we'd show her exactly how well we'd learned. The hospital room hummed with activity. Doctors ran test after test on Lauren while FBI agents secured the floor. The toxicology report came back within an hour. Ethylene glycol, antifreeze. Not enough to kill immediately, but enough to cause kidney damage if untreated. She'll be fine, Dr. Patel assured us. We caught it early. Dialysis and fomepizole will clear her system. But if she'd had more coffee or if we'd waited longer... Margaret knew exactly what she was doing, Patricia said grimly. Calculated the dose to create urgency but not immediate death. She needed leverage. My phone rang at exactly 6 hours. Margaret punctual as always when it came to manipulation. Ready to be reasonable? She asked without preamble. Lauren's in the hospital, I said, letting real emotion color my voice. Kidney failure, you poisoned your own daughter. Collateral damage. She was always too soft anyway. Now about my money. I need proof she'll survive first. A face-to-face meeting. You give me the full antidote, I'll transfer the funds. Silence. Then, nice try. But I didn't survive 25 years by being stupid. Wire transfer first. Then I'll courier the medical protocol to save dear Lauren. She could die while we're negotiating. Then you'd better hurry. Account details coming by text. You have 1 hour. The line went dead. Seconds later, a text arrived with routing numbers for an offshore account. The FBI's Financial Crimes Unit immediately began tracing it. Cayman Islands, the analyst reported. But it's a shell. The money will bounce through a dozen countries before she can touch it. Perfect, Patricia said, surprising everyone. That gives us time. She made a call speaking rapidly in legal terms I barely understood. When she hung up, she was smiling. It wasn't a nice smile. What did you just do? I asked. Called in a favor from a friend at the Treasury Department. Any transfer to that account will be flagged and frozen for 72 hours due to suspected terrorist financing. She'll know immediately, an agent protested. No, she'll see the transfer initiated. The funds will show as pending. By the time she realizes they're frozen, we'll have her. My phone buzzed. Another unknown number. I answered warily. Anne-Marie Williams. A woman's voice, nervous but determined. Yes. This is Helen Martinez, Margaret's sister. I need to talk to you. She's lost her mind. The things she's planning, I can't be part of it anymore. Patricia grabbed the phone, putting it on speaker. Ms. Martinez, this is Patricia Vanderberg, Anne-Marie's attorney. Are you willing to cooperate with federal authorities? I have to. She's talking about killing them both now. Says it's the only way to clean up loose ends. I thought we were just going to sue for money, but she's got syringes medications. She keeps saying accidents happen in hospitals. Where is she? Patricia demanded. I don't know exactly, but she mentioned something about visiting Harold. Said she needs to tie up that loose end too. Harold. We'd been so focused on protecting Lauren and me, we'd forgotten about him. He was in the same hospital just 3 floors up, recovering from years of being drugged. Go, Patricia commanded the agents. Secure Harold Williams immediately. Half the team rushed out while I initiated the wire transfer under FBI supervision. $5 million of my legitimately earned money, marked and tracked, sent to catch a killer. Transfer pending, I announced, showing Margaret's text. Now we wait. But Margaret didn't wait. Patricia's phone rang. It was the agent who'd gone to check on Harold. Room's empty. Nurse says his wife checked him out against medical advice 20 minutes ago. She's got him, I breathed. She's got Harold. My phone rang again. Margaret, but this time on video call. She appeared on screen sitting in what looked like a van. Harold was visible in the background, slumped in a wheelchair, clearly sedated. Change of plans, she announced. Since you poisoned Lauren against me, I'll need extra insurance. Harold's coming with me. Try to stop me, and he has an unfortunate reaction to his medications. Margaret, please, I started, but she cut me off. The transfer's processing. Good. When it clears, I'll drop Harold at a hospital somewhere. Maybe Miami, maybe Phoenix. Depends on my mood. You're traveling with a kidnapped man across state lines, Patricia said coldly. That's federal kidnapping, life in prison. Margaret laughed. I'm already looking at 25 years, according to Annie. What's life compared to that? Besides, who's going to testify Harold? He's non-compos mentis, a danger to himself. I'm just a concerned wife getting him proper care. What about Helen? I played the card, watching Margaret's face carefully. She called us Margaret. Your sister's done with your schemes. For the first time, Margaret's mask cracked. You're lying. Am I? She told us about the syringes, the plan to cause accidents in the hospital. She's with the FBI right now, telling them everything. That stupid cow, Margaret snarled, always was weak, just like Diana, just like you. Diana was weak. Lauren's voice came from behind me. She'd insisted on leaving her bed when she heard about Harold wheeling her IV pole into our makeshift command center. My real mother was weak. Margaret's expression softened into something almost worse than anger. False maternal concern. Oh, Lauren, you shouldn't be up. You need rest after your terrible accident. The accident you caused, Lauren shot back. You poisoned me, your actual daughter. I gave you everything. The best schools, the best clothes opportunities that worthless Annie could never appreciate. And how do you repay me by taking her side? She paid for all of it, with my money my real parents left me. Your real parents were idiots who drove drunk and got themselves killed. I saved you from growing up an orphan. You should be grateful. They weren't drunk. Helen Martinez's voice came through Patricia's phone. She was on with the FBI, but they'd patched her through. I've kept quiet for 20 years, Margaret, but I'm done. Diana wasn't drunk. The other driver was. But you told everyone she was drunk to make yourself look better when you took Lauren. Shut up, Helen. You've always twisted everything, made yourself the hero, but you're not. You're a thief and a liar, and now you're a kidnapper. Margaret's face contorted with rage. Behind her, Harold stirred slightly, a soft moan escaping his lips. "He needs medical attention," I said urgently. "Whatever you've given him." "He's fine, just sleeping." Like he should have been all along instead of recording me, spying on me, betraying me after everything I've done for this family. "What you've done, I couldn't help myself. You mean stealing from foster children, drugging your husband, trying to murder your daughters for insurance money. I made hard choices. I survived. Do you know what it's like growing up poor, watching everyone else have more? I swore my children would never feel that. And look how you've repaid me." "We were never your children," I said quietly. "Just income streams, just tools for your cons." The transfer cleared, Margaret announced, suddenly looking at something off-screen. Finally, something goes right today. But her triumph was short-lived. Within seconds, her expression changed. "What do you mean it's under review?" "What review?" Patricia smirked. "Terrorist financing protocols. Any transfer over $1 million to certain offshore accounts gets a 72-hour hold. Didn't you know?" Margaret screamed a sound of pure fury that made Harold stir again. "You tricked me." "Like you've tricked everyone for 25 years, I said. "It's over, Margaret. Let Harold go. Turn yourself in. Maybe they'll be lenient." Lenient. She laughed maniacally. "I know what's waiting for me. Prison, disgrace, losing everything I've built. No, if I'm going down, I'm taking him with me. 25 years of marriage should mean something." She reached for something off camera. A syringe appeared in her hand. "No," Lauren and I screamed together. "Goodbye, girls. Remember this moment. Remember that you could have just played along and everyone would have lived happily ever after." The video cut off. "Track that van," Patricia commanded. "She's going to kill him." The FBI's tech team worked frantically while I stood frozen, Lauren gripping my hand. Our father, flawed and weak, but still our father was about to die because we'd fought back. "Got her," an agent announced. "Van's GPS shows her on I-95 southbound just past exit 42. State police are en route," another added. "Helicopter support in the air." "We need to go," I said. "We need to be there." "Absolutely not," the lead agent said. "This is a dangerous fugitive with a hostage." "She's our mother," Lauren said quietly. "He's our father. Dysfunctional and criminal, but ours. We need to be there when this ends." Patricia looked between us, then nodded. "I'll drive. Agents can follow, but we stay back until it's secure." As we raced toward the confrontation, I thought about the wedding toast that started this avalanche. "Here's to the family fraud in white." Margaret had been right about one thing. I had been a fraud. Pretending we were a normal family. Pretending love could fix theft and lies and attempted murder. But that fraud was over now. Whatever happened in the next hour, the Williams family's decades of deception would finally end. Whether in handcuffs or worse, Margaret's reign of manipulation was finished. "I'm scared," Lauren admitted quietly. "Me too," I said, squeezing her hand. "But we're together, real sisters. Whatever happens, we face it together." The highway stretched ahead, leading to either tragedy or justice. Maybe both, but at least finally it would lead to truth. The state police had Margaret's van surrounded at a rest stop 40 miles south. Patricia pulled over at the command post they'd established where FBI agents and local law enforcement coordinated their approach. On the monitors, we could see the van clearly, Margaret still in the driver's seat. Harold slumped beside her. "She's been in there 20 minutes, the lead agent informed us. "Won't respond to negotiators. We have snipers in position, but with Harold right there." "Let me talk to her," I said. "Absolutely not." "She's expecting me to beg, to plead. It's what she wants. Give her that and maybe she'll let Harold go." Lauren stepped forward, still weak from the poisoning but determined. "I'll go with her. She always preferred me. Maybe seeing her real daughter will snap her out of this." "Neither of you is going near that van," Patricia said firmly. But Lauren wasn't listening. She was staring at one of the evidence boxes the agents had brought. Is that Is that the safe from the house? An agent nodded. Retrieved it during the search. Haven't had time to fully process the contents. Open it, Lauren demanded. Please, the combination is my birthday, 0817. The agent looked at his supervisor, who nodded. The safe clicked open, revealing stacks of documents, jewelry, and cash. Lauren pushed past the money, digging deeper until she found what she was looking for. A manila envelope marked, "Lauren, do not open until 18. I remember this, she whispered. Mom said it was my birth parents' last letter to me. Said it would be too painful to read until I was older, but I never opened it. Too scared. With shaking hands, she tore open the envelope. Inside were documents, photos, and a letter. As she read, her face went through a series of transformations. Shock, confusion, then finally rage. She lied. Lauren said, her voice deadly quiet. My parents weren't drunk, weren't even driving. They were passengers in an Uber. The drunk driver hit them. And this, she held up a document. This is a letter from their lawyer. They were in that Uber coming home from signing papers. Papers to remove Margaret as my trustee because they discovered she'd already stolen $50,000 from my trust. What? I gasped. They were going to press charges, cut her off completely. The accident happened 2 hours after they left the lawyer's office. Lauren looked up, her eyes bright with unshed tears. She told everyone they were drunks who got themselves killed, but they died trying to protect me from her. Lauren, I reached for her, but she pulled away, still reading. There's more. A letter from my mom to me. Her voice broke. She says she knew Margaret was troubled, jealous. That's why they set up the trust the way they did with outside oversight. But Margaret found a way around it. My mom writes that if anything happens to them, I should find Anne-Marie Williams, that you were the only good thing to come from Margaret's life. They knew about me. Everyone knew. Mom writes that watching Margaret manipulate and use her foster daughter broke their hearts. They tried to report it, but Margaret always had explanations. They were building a case when... She couldn't finish. On the monitors, we saw movement. Margaret was on her phone, gesticulating wildly. The negotiator's phone rang. She wants to talk to her daughters, he reported. Both of them. Patricia started to protest, but Lauren was already moving, clutching the letter. Put her through. Margaret's face appeared on the tablet screen. She looked older somehow, the careful mask completely gone, replaced by something wild and desperate. My girls, she said, trying for maternal warmth but achieving only manic energy. Come to say goodbye to Mommy. I read the letter, Lauren said without preamble. From my real mom. I know what you did. Margaret's expression flickered. What letter? More of Annie's tricks. The one you kept in your safe. The one that says my parents were coming from their lawyer when they died. The lawyer who was helping them press charges against you for theft. Diana was always dramatic, making accusations without proof. $50,000, Margaret. You stole $50,000 and they caught you. They were going to have you arrested. Then conveniently, they die in an accident. How dare you imply? Did you have them killed? Lauren's voice was ice. Did you arrange the accident? Even through the video, we could see Margaret go pale. That's insane. I'm your mother. No, you're not. You're the woman who stole my parents' money, told lies about them after they died, and spent 20 years stealing from their daughter. My mother was Diana Chen, and she loved me enough to try to protect me from you. Everything I did was for you, for this family. No, I interjected. Everything you did was for money, foster payments from me, trust funds from Lauren, insurance policies on all of us. We were never daughters to you, just revenue streams. Harold stirred in the seat beside her, a groan escaping his lips. Margaret glanced at him with irritation. Is he okay? I asked urgently. He's fine, just sleeping off his medications, the ones he needs for his condition. The condition you created by drugging him for 12 years. Lauren shot back. Margaret's face contorted. "You ungrateful brats, both of you. I gave you everything with our own money." We said in unison, then looked at each other surprised by the synchronization. "I'm done with this," Margaret snarled. She held up the syringe still full of clear liquid. "You want Harold to live, then you'll do exactly what I say. New plan. You're going to get me real money, cash, and a plane, private, to somewhere without extradition." "That's not going to happen," the negotiator's voice came through the speaker. "Mrs. Williams, this is Agent Carter with the FBI. You're surrounded. There's no escape. But if you surrender now, if you let Harold go, things will go better for you." "Better you mean 25 years instead of life?" "No, thank you." She positioned the syringe near Harold's neck. Everyone in the command post tensed. "Wait," Lauren cried out. What if I come with you a hostage worth more than Harold? Your real daughter?" "Lauren, no," I grabbed her arm. But she shook me off, speaking directly to Margaret. "You always said I was the one you really loved. Your blood. Prove it. Let Harold go and take me instead. I won't fight. I won't resist. Just let him live." Margaret considered this, her expression calculating. "You'd do that after everything." "You're still my mother." Lauren lied smoothly. "And I understand now. You were just trying to protect us, to provide for us. Annie turned me against you, but I see clearly now." "Lauren, what are you doing?" I hissed. She squeezed my hand behind the tablet out of Margaret's view. "Trust me," the gesture said. "You always were my smart girl," Margaret said, her voice softening. "Not like Annie, always whining about money, about fairness. You understood that sometimes you have to take what you deserve." "Exactly," Lauren agreed. "So let's take it together, just us. Leave the dead weight behind." Margaret looked at Harold, then back at Lauren. "You're serious?" "I'm already dying, aren't I?" Lauren played her trump card. "The poison you gave me. The doctors said there might be permanent damage. If I'm going to die, I'd rather it be with my real mother than in some hospital. It was a lie. The doctors had said she'd make a full recovery, but Margaret didn't know that. And my baby." Margaret's eyes actually teared up. "I never meant for you to drink that coffee. It was meant for her." She glared at me through the screen. "I know," Lauren soothed. "Just another way Annie ruined everything. But we can fix this. Together. Like it should have been all along. You'll need to come alone. No wires, no weapons." "Of course." "Lauren, I forbid this," Patricia said firmly. But Lauren was already removing her jewelry, anything that could conceivably hide a recording device. "I know what I'm doing." She leaned close to me, whispering urgently. "When she opens the door for me, they'll have a clear shot. She'll be focused on me, not Harold. Trust me." "This is insane," I whispered back. "No, this is ending it. 20 years of lies, of theft, of pain. It ends today." She pulled me into a fierce hug. "You're my sister. My real sister. Remember that." Before anyone could stop her, Lauren walked out of the command post toward the van, hands raised. Through the monitors, we watched Margaret's expression cycle through suspicion, hope, and finally triumph. "That's my good girl," Margaret crooned through the speaker. "Coming back to Mommy." The van door opened. Margaret stepped out, syringe still in hand but no longer aimed at Harold. Her attention was entirely on Lauren, approaching slowly across the pavement. "I knew you'd see sense," Margaret said. "We're blood. That matters more than—" The shot was clean, precise. A sniper's tranquilizer dart hit Margaret's shoulder. She spun, confusion replacing triumph, the syringe falling from nerveless fingers. A second dart hit her leg as she tried to retreat to the van. "You lying little—" she began, then collapsed. FBI agents swarmed the van. Medics rushed to Harold while others secured Margaret's unconscious form. Lauren stood in the middle of it, all shaking but upright. I ran to her, catching her just as her knees gave out. "You magnificent, crazy, brave idiot." "Learned from my sister," she gasped, half laughing, half crying. "The one who always sacrificed for family, the real one." Medics checked Harold's vitals, announcing he was stable, just heavily sedated. Margaret was cuffed and loaded into an ambulance under heavy guard. The syringe was carefully bagged as evidence. "What was in it?" I asked an agent. "Field test shows concentrated potassium, enough to cause instant cardiac arrest. Would have looked like a heart attack." Lauren and I clung to each other, processing how close we'd come to losing Harold. Flawed, weak Harold, but the only father we'd known. "She really would have done it," Lauren whispered. "Killed him. Killed all of us eventually." "But she didn't, because you stopped her. Because we stopped her together." As the sun set over the rest stop, painting everything in shades of gold and red, I realized the girl who'd thrown champagne in my face a week ago was gone. In her place stood my sister, my real sister. Forged in crisis, bonded by truth, stronger together than Margaret ever imagined we could be. The performance was over, the fraud exposed. The family Margaret had built on lies lay in ruins. But from those ashes, Lauren and I would build something real, something true, something worth saving. The awakening was complete. Now came the harder part, learning how to live as ourselves, not as the weapons Margaret had tried to make us. But we'd figure it out, together. 2 weeks after Margaret's arrest, Lauren stood at my apartment door with a manila folder and a determined expression. The poison was fully cleared from her system, but the betrayal still showed in her eyes. "I found something," she said without preamble, "in Margaret's, I don't even know what to call her anymore." "Margaret works," I said, stepping aside to let her in. "She lost the right to be called anything else." Lauren nodded, settling onto my couch. The same couch where just a month ago I'd sat planning my honeymoon with Daniel. Now it was command central for unraveling decades of fraud. "The FBI let me go through her computer files," Lauren explained, opening the folder. "They found hidden partitions, encrypted folders. Margaret was paranoid, but she was also arrogant. She kept records of everything." "What kind of records?" "The kind that show she's planning to run." Lauren spread out printed emails, bank statements, travel documents. "Look at this. 3 weeks ago, she started liquidating specific accounts, not the ones we knew about. Shadow accounts in the Cayman, Switzerland, even cryptocurrency." I studied the documents, my heart sinking. "She's been planning this." "Gets worse. Yesterday, she was moved from federal holding to a minimum security facility pending trial. Her lawyer argued she's a non-violent offender. A flight risk assessment put her as low probability because of her age and community ties." "They don't know her like we do." "Exactly. But look at this." Lauren pulled out a printed email dated the day before our wedding. She wrote to someone called M. Rossini about final preparations and ensuring the packages are ready for transport. Packages. I think she means money, physical cash. The FBI traced $5 million converted to cash over the past year. Small enough amounts to avoid reporting, but it adds up. That money is somewhere, and she's planning to get to it. My phone buzzed, Daniel texting that Patricia was on her way up. Perfect timing. "We need to tell the FBI," I said. I tried. They said without concrete evidence of an escape plan, they can't do anything. The emails are too vague. The money could be anywhere. Lauren's frustration was evident. They think she's just a bitter old woman who got caught. They don't understand what she's capable of. Patricia arrived with Harold, who looked healthier than I'd seen him in years. Clear-eyed, steady on his feet, finally free of Margaret's chemical control. "Girls," he said, his voice stronger, "I've been remembering things. Things Margaret said when she thought I was too drugged to understand." We gathered around the dining table as Harold pulled out a small notebook. I started writing things down months ago, little snippets that seemed important. He flipped through pages of shaky handwriting. "Here, she mentioned Rossini multiple times, said he owed her from the Atlanta job." "Atlanta job," Patricia leaned forward. 23 years ago, we lived in Atlanta for 6 months. Margaret said it was for my work, but I never had a job there. She'd disappear for days, come back with cash. We left suddenly one night. She was scared, kept looking over her shoulder. "You think she was involved in something criminal?" I asked. "I know she was. Found newspaper clippings she'd hidden. A foster care administrator went to prison for embezzling federal funds. Margaret's name was never mentioned, but the timing. She was involved and got away with it," Lauren finished. "And this Rossini helped her." "Which means he's helping her now," I added. Patricia was already on her phone calling her FBI contacts. While she spoke in rapid legal terms, Lauren showed me more discoveries. Credit card records show she's been buying camping equipment, small purchases spread over months, sleeping bags, portable stoves, water purification tablets. Not exactly the shopping list of a 60-year-old woman planning to spend life in prison. "She's planning to disappear," Harold said quietly. "Really disappear. Off the grid. She always said if things went bad, she'd rather live in the wilderness than a cell. But she needs money to do that, and a way out of custody." I thought hard. When's her next court appearance? "Tomorrow," Lauren said. "Bail hearing, her lawyer's pushing hard for release with monitoring. We have to stop that. How we're victims in the case. We can't influence bail decisions." I looked at the evidence spread before us. Vague emails, suspicious purchases, missing money. Not enough for the FBI to act, but more than enough to know Margaret was planning something. "What if we don't try to stop her?" I said slowly. Everyone stared at me. "Hear me out. She's planning to run, we know it. But we don't know where the money is or who's helping her. What if we let her think she's winning?" "That's insane," Patricia said, but her expression was thoughtful. "Is it right now she's contained but planning? If she gets bail and runs, the FBI will catch her eventually. But if we're smarter about this..." Lauren caught on first. "We help her run, control how and when, lead her right to the money and her accomplices." "A sting operation," Harold added. "Like what the FBI did at the rest stop, but bigger." Patricia ended her call. "The FBI isn't interested in theories. They need concrete evidence, but..." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "If private citizens happen to gather information that led to preventing a federal fugitive's escape, we'd be heroes instead of vigilantes," I finished. "I'm in," Lauren said immediately. "But we need more information, like where she's planning to go." Harold flipped through his notebook again. "Here, she mentioned property in West Virginia. Said it was in someone else's name, but she had access. Called it her insurance policy." "That's just a few hours from here," I noted. "Close enough to reach quickly, remote enough to hide. And if she's been stockpiling cash and supplies..." Lauren trailed off the plan forming in all our minds. "We need someone on the inside," Patricia said. "Someone who can get close to her in custody, find out the details." "What about her sister?" I suggested. "Helen Martinez. She flipped on Margaret once. Maybe she'd do it again." "Helen's been in protective custody since she testified," Patricia said. "But I could reach out, see if she's willing to help." My phone rang, unknown number. We all tensed. "Answer it," Patricia advised, on speaker. "Hello." Anne-Marie Williams. A man's voice, slight accent, professionally neutral. "Yes. My name is Marco Rossini. I believe you've been looking into me." My blood ran cold. How did he know? "I don't know what you mean," I managed. He chuckled. "Please, your sister's inquiries weren't as discreet as she thought, but I'm not calling to threaten you. I'm calling to make a deal." "What kind of deal?" "The kind where we both get what we want. You want Margaret contained. I want my money back. She owes me considerably from our past endeavors. I don't know anything about any money. But you could find out. You're her daughters. She trusts you. Well, trusted you, but blood is blood. She might tell you things she wouldn't tell the FBI." Lauren grabbed my hand, squeezing hard. This was it, the connection we needed. "What are you proposing?" I asked. "You help me recover what she owes me, and I'll tell you exactly when and how she plans to escape. Win-win, as they say. How do we know you won't just help her anyway?" "Because Miss Williams, your mother, burned me 23 years ago. Took her cut and vanished, left me holding the bag. I've been waiting a long time for payback, financial and otherwise." Patricia was frantically writing notes, mouthing, "Keep him talking." "We'd need proof you actually know her plans," I said. "Fair enough. Her bail hearing tomorrow, she's expecting to get house arrest with an ankle monitor. Her lawyer's already been paid to argue diminished flight risk due to her husband's medical needs. Once she's out, she has 72 hours before her extraction." Extraction. Thursday night, 10 p.m. A medical transport van will arrive at her monitoring address for a supposed emergency. The EMTs are actually associates of mine. Well, they were before she stiffed me. Now they work for whoever pays better. "And you want us to pay?" "I want what she owes me. $500,000. You help me get it, I'll make sure she's in that van when the FBI arrives to arrest everyone." Lauren scribbled on a notepad. "He's offering to double-cross her ukiwaimi ukomina." "I need to discuss this with my family," I said carefully. "Of course. You have my number now. Call me when you decide. But decide quickly. Tomorrow's bail hearing is when everything starts moving." He hung up. We sat in stunned silence for a moment. "This is perfect," Lauren said finally. "We string along Rossini, find out Margaret's full plan, and hand everything to the FBI. "It's dangerous," Patricia warned. "We're talking about criminals with decades of experience." "We're talking about justice," I countered. "Real justice. Not just for the financial crimes, but for everything. The lies about Lauren's parents, the foster fraud, the drugging, the attempted murder." Harold spoke up quietly. "I want to help. I know I failed you both before, but I'm clear-headed now. I remember things, details that might help." "We'll need Helen too," Lauren said. "If she visits Margaret, she could confirm the escape plan." "And we need the FBI to be ready," Patricia added, "without tipping them off that we're running our own operation." I looked around the table at my strange new family. My sister poisoned but unbroken. My father finally free from chemical chains. My mother-in-law brilliant and protective. This wasn't the family I'd grown up with, built on lies and manipulation. This was the family I'd chosen, forged in truth and united in purpose. "So we're doing this?" I asked. "We're going to catch Margaret at her own game. We're going to end this," Lauren said firmly, "once and for all." As we began planning in earnest, I thought about the woman in federal custody, probably scheming even now. She'd taught us to be survivors, to be strategic, to think 3 moves ahead. Now we'd use every lesson she'd ever taught us, but for justice instead of greed. The alliance was formed. The trap was set. All we needed now was for Margaret to walk into it, confident in her superiority, never suspecting that her greatest creations, the daughter she'd tried to weaponize, would be her downfall. Tuesday morning's bail hearing arrived with unexpected drama. Lauren and I sat in the courtroom's victim section while Patricia observed from the lawyer's gallery. Margaret entered in shackles, looking frail and grandmotherly in a conservative cardigan. A calculated choice, no doubt. Her lawyer, a sharp-dressed man named Christopher Vance, immediately launched into his argument. "Your Honor, Mrs. Williams is a 62-year-old woman with no prior criminal record. She has deep community ties, a husband who requires her care, and has been fully cooperative since her arrest." The prosecutor objected, citing the severity of the charges and the sophisticated nature of the fraud. But I could see the judge wavering. Margaret had always been gifted at appearing harmless. Then Harold stood up in the gallery. "Your Honor, may I speak?" The judge frowned. "Are you represented by counsel, sir?" "I'm Harold Williams, her husband, the one who supposedly needs her care." His voice was steady, clear. "I need to tell you what you're not hearing." Vance objected immediately, but the judge overruled him, intrigued. "I've been drugged for 12 years, Your Honor, kept compliant so I wouldn't interfere with her schemes. I don't need her care. I need protection from her. If you release her, I genuinely fear for my life and the lives of our daughters." Margaret's mask slipped just for a moment, rage flashing across her face before she reassembled her grandmother persona. The judge's expression hardened. "Mr. Williams, these are serious allegations. Do you have proof?" Patricia stood smoothly. Your Honor, I'm Patricia Vanderberg representing Mr. Williams. We have medical records documenting long-term benzodiazepine presence in his system, far exceeding therapeutic doses. We also have recordings of Mrs. Williams discussing medication schedules with an unlicensed provider. She handed a USB drive to the bailiff. The judge reviewed the files on her computer, her expression growing darker by the minute. Mrs. Williams, the judge said finally, based on this new information and the serious nature of the charges, including attempted murder and witness tampering, bail is denied. You will remain in federal custody pending trial. Margaret erupted. You stupid man, you've ruined everything. I'll make you pay for this, all of you. The bailiffs moved to restrain her as she continued screaming threats. Her lawyer tried to calm her, but she turned on him too. You said this was guaranteed. You promised me house arrest. I want my money back, you incompetent fool. The judge banged her gavel. Remove the defendant. Mr. Vance, I suggest you control your client before she adds more charges to her considerable list. As Margaret was dragged out, still raging, she locked eyes with me. The hatred there was pure, undiluted, but underneath it, I saw something else. Fear. For the first time in my life, Margaret Williams was afraid. Outside the courthouse, we regrouped. The plan needed adjusting now that Margaret would remain in custody. This is better, Patricia said. She's more desperate now, more likely to make mistakes. My phone buzzed. Rossini. Interesting hearing, he said without preamble. Margaret just called me from holding. She's moved up the timeline. To when? Tonight. She's being transferred to a federal facility upstate at 8 p.m., 3-car convoy. She wants my people to hit the middle car, make it look like a rival gang attack on another prisoner. That's insane. People could die. Which is why I'm calling you. I want my money, not a murder charge. You have 6 hours to find out where she's hidden the cash, or I let her plan proceed and wash my hands of it. 6 hours? That's impossible. Then you'd better work fast. She mentioned something about her insurance policy. Said only her real daughter would understand where to find it. Mean anything to you? I looked at Lauren, who'd gone pale. Maybe. We'll call you back. 4 hours now, clock's ticking. He hung up. Lauren was already pulling out her phone, scrolling through old photos. Insurance policy, real daughter. She said that to me once, years ago. She found what she was looking for. Here, my sweet 16 party. She gave me this weird gift, an antique music box. Said it was my insurance policy if anything ever happened to her. Where is it now? Storage unit. She made me put a bunch of stuff there when I started at Columbia. Said the apartment was too small. Lauren's eyes widened. Oh my God, she's been planning this for years. We raced to the storage facility in Queens, Patricia, calling her FBI contacts, while Harold worked on remembering more details. The unit was registered under Lauren's name, paid up for 5 years in advance. Inside, stacked floor to ceiling, were boxes of Lauren's childhood belongings. It would take days to search everything. The music box, Lauren said, pushing through boxes. It's here somewhere. We searched, frantically aware of every passing minute. Finally, Harold spotted it on a high shelf, an ornate wooden box, Swiss-made, playing a tinny version of Frère Jacques when opened. But the music box itself was empty. There's got to be more, I said, examining it carefully. The base felt too heavy for the size. Lauren grabbed it from me, frustration overtaking caution. She twisted the key mechanism hard. Something clicked. The false bottom popped open. Inside lay a single key and a business card for a private vault company in Manhattan. This is it, Patricia breathed. This is where the money is. But the vault company required 2 forms of ID and a passcode for access. We had the key, but nothing else. Think, I urged Lauren. What would she use as a passcode? Her birthday. My birthday. We tried calling the vault company, but they wouldn't even confirm an account existed without proper authorization. We need Helen, Harold said suddenly. She might know. Margaret would have needed someone else who could access it in an emergency. Patricia made the call. Within an hour, Helen Martinez arrived with her FBI protection detail. She looked terrified but determined. "I want immunity," she said immediately. "Full immunity for anything I might have known about." "That depends on what you tell us," Patricia negotiated. Helen pulled out a worn notebook. "Margaret made me memorize things, account numbers, passwords, in case something happened to her. The vault passcode is Diana's death date, 10/27/01. "You knew about the vault," Lauren accused. "I knew she had contingencies, not what was in them." Helen looked genuinely remorseful. "I thought it was just money she'd saved. I didn't know about everything else." We had 2 hours left. The FBI agents Patricia contacted met us at the vault company. With the key, Lauren's ID, and the passcode, we gained access. The vault contained $5 million in cash sorted into neat bundles. But that wasn't all. There were also forged passports for Margaret under different names, plane tickets to various non-extradition countries, and detailed plans for establishing new identities. Most damning was a journal, Margaret's handwriting documenting every crime over 25 years, the Foster fraud, the trust theft, even notes about Diana's car accident with the chilling annotation, "Problem solved, Elle's inheritance secured." She documented everything, the lead FBI agent said in amazement. "This is a prosecutor's dream." I called Rossini. "We found it, all of it. $5 million in cash plus evidence that will bury her." "Excellent, "Nice try, you'll get your cut when Margaret is in custody and can't hurt anyone else." He laughed. "You learn fast." "Fine. Here's what you need to know. Transport leaves at 8 from the Federal Holding Facility on Varick Street. 3 black SUVs. She'll be in the middle one with 2 guards. My people will hit them at the intersection of Houston and Broadway. Lots of confusion, easy to extract her in the chaos. And if we alert the FBI, then you'd better make sure they're ready. Margaret has friends inside. Someone will tip her off if you're not careful." Patricia was already coordinating with the FBI task force. They couldn't simply cancel the transport. That would alert Margaret's inside contacts. Instead, they'd swap the prisoners last minute, putting an undercover agent in Margaret's place. 7:45 p.m. We waited in an FBI surveillance van 3 blocks from the intersection. Lauren gripped my hand as we watched the monitors showing various angles of the transport route. 2 minutes out, an agent reported. The 3 SUVs moved in formation through evening traffic. Everything looked normal. Then, at exactly 8:03 it happened. 2 vans screeched to a halt, blocking the convoy. Smoke grenades deployed, creating instant chaos. Figures in tactical gear swarmed the middle SUV. But the FBI was ready. Undercover units emerged from seemingly empty storefronts. A helicopter spotlight illuminated the scene. In seconds, the would-be rescuers found themselves surrounded. "Federal agents, drop your weapons." The tactical team tried to retreat but found their escape routes blocked. One by one, they surrendered. The middle SUV door opened, revealing not Margaret, but an FBI agent in a blonde wig. "Where is she?" one of the captured men shouted. "Where's Williams?" Margaret was actually in an armored transport 30 miles away, heading to maximum security federal prison. No minimum security, no possibility of bail, no escape. My phone rang, Rossini again. "Well played," he said, sounding amused rather than angry. "I assume my payment is forfeit." "The FBI has questions for you," I said. "I'm sure they do. Unfortunately, I'm already in international waters. But tell Margaret something for me. We're even now. 23 years of interest collected." The line went dead. The FBI would search for him, but something told me Marco Rossini would never be found. In the surveillance van, we watched the arrest scene unfold. 14 people in custody, a major conspiracy exposed, Margaret's last hope of escape crushed. "It's over," Lauren breathed. "It's really over." "The criminal part," Patricia corrected. "Now comes the trial. She'll fight every charge." "Let her," I said, thinking of the journal documenting her crimes. "We have the truth now, all of it." Harold pulled both of us into an embrace. I'm proud of you both. You did what I never could. You stood up to her. As the FBI processed the scene, I thought about the journey from that champagne-soaked wedding toast to this moment. The family Margaret had built on lies was gone, but in its place stood something stronger: truth, justice, and most importantly, chosen bonds that no amount of manipulation could break. The sting was complete. The trap had worked. And somewhere in a federal transport, Margaret Williams was learning the hardest lesson of all the daughters she'd tried to weapon had become her justice. The federal courthouse in Lower Manhattan buzzed with activity as Margaret's trial date approached. 3 months had passed since the failed escape attempt, and the full scope of her crimes was still being uncovered. Lauren and I sat in Patricia's office reviewing the latest revelations from the FBI's investigation. They found 12 more victims, Patricia said, sliding a folder across her desk. Foster children Margaret had contact with through various agencies over the years. Small-scale frauds, but it establishes a pattern going back 30 years. 30 years of stealing from children, Lauren said quietly. How did no one notice? She was careful, never took enough to trigger investigations, moved frequently, changed agencies, always had explanations. Patricia pulled out another document. But this is what I wanted you to see. Harold's medical records from a doctor in Philadelphia, from 15 years ago. I read the file, my stomach turning. She had him committed for 2 weeks. Right after he tried to report the Foster fraud, had him declared temporarily incompetent, claiming paranoid delusions. When he got out, she started the medication regimen. Harold had moved in with Daniel and me after the arrest, slowly rebuilding his life free from Margaret's control. The man who emerged from the chemical fog was intelligent, kind, and filled with regret for the years he'd lost. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Your birth mother is beautiful. Would be a shame if something happened to her. My blood ran cold. I showed Patricia immediately. Margaret, Lauren asked, reading over my shoulder. Patricia was already calling the FBI. She's not supposed to have phone access. This is witness intimidation. Within an hour, we learned the truth. Margaret had been caught with a contraband cell phone smuggled in by a corrupted guard, but the damage was done. She knew about Susan. Somehow she'd found out I'd been in contact with my birth mother. We need to warn Susan, I said urgently. Already on it, Patricia assured me. The FBI will provide protection. But I needed to do more than warn her. I needed to see her. After 25 years, I needed to meet the woman who'd never stopped looking for me. The meeting was arranged for the next day at a secure FBI facility. I stood outside the conference room, Lauren beside me for support, my heart pounding. You can do this, Lauren whispered. She's waited 25 years. She loves you already. The door opened. Susan Hartwell stood there, and it was like looking in a mirror aged 20 years forward. Same eyes, same nose, same nervous habit of tucking hair behind our ears. Annie, she breathed, and then we were hugging both, crying 25 years of separation dissolving in an instant. We talked for hours about her teenage pregnancy, the pressure from her parents, the letters she'd written faithfully, her career in pediatric surgery inspired by the baby she couldn't save from the foster system. I hired so many investigators, she said, holding my hands like she might never let go. But Margaret was clever. False addresses, different schools. By the time I found each breadcrumb, you'd moved on. She told me you were dead, that my birth parents died in a fire. Susan's face darkened. I know. The investigator I hired last year found the false death certificates she created. That woman is evil Annie. Pure evil. Not pure evil, I said, surprising myself. Just broken, greedy, willing to destroy lives for money. But she taught me something valuable. What's that? How not to be. Every cruel thing she did, every manipulation, every theft. It showed me exactly the person I never wanted to become. Susan smiled through her tears. You became successful despite her. A business owner, and from what the FBI told me, incredibly brave. I had help. I glanced at Lauren. My sister. My real sister, not the enemy Margaret tried to create. The FBI agent knocked, reminding us about time constraints. But before we parted, Susan pulled out a small box. I bought this the day you were born. Kept it all these years, hoping... She opened it to reveal a delicate gold necklace with a tiny pendant. It's a Celtic knot, supposed to represent eternal bonds that can't be broken. As she fastened it around my neck, I thought about bonds. The false ones Margaret had created, the real ones forged in crisis with Lauren, the eternal one with a mother who never gave up. That evening, Harold called a family meeting. He looked nervous but determined, reminding me of the father I'd glimpsed in rare moments growing up before the drugs clouded his mind. I've been remembering more things, he said. About Diana's accident, about that night. We all leaned forward. The car accident that killed Lauren's parents remained the one piece of the puzzle that felt incomplete. Margaret got a phone call around 10 p.m. I was in my study, but I heard her side. She kept saying, "Are you sure?" and make it look real. Then she said something that haunts me now, both of them. It has to be both, or she inherits everything. You think she ordered the hit? Lauren's voice was barely a whisper. I don't know, maybe, or maybe she just knew it was happening. But she wasn't surprised when the police came. She had Lauren's documents ready, knew exactly what to say to get custody immediately. We need to tell the FBI, Patricia said immediately. But Harold wasn't done. There's more. I found something in the attic last week, hidden in the insulation. He pulled out a water-stained envelope. I think Margaret forgot about it during all the chaos. Inside was a single photograph. Margaret with a man I didn't recognize standing in front of a car, the same make and model that had killed Diana and Robert Chen. Written on the back, M and Tommy, October 25th, 2001. 2 days before the accident. Who's Tommy? Lauren asked, though I think we all suspected. Patricia was already typing on her laptop. Thomas Brennan, arrested for vehicular manslaughter in 2003, currently serving life for a different murder in 2010. She looked up. He was known for making accidents happen, for the right price. The room fell silent as we processed this. Margaret hadn't just stolen from Lauren. She might have murdered her parents. We take this to the FBI tonight, Patricia decided. This could change everything. Add murder charges to the fraud case. As we prepared to leave, my phone rang. The Federal Detention Center. This call is from an inmate at... I almost hung up, but something made me accept. Enjoying your reunion. Margaret's voice was calm. Too calm. How's dear Susan still saving sick children, still pining for the baby she threw away? She didn't throw me away. You stole me, just like you stole everything else. I made you strong. Everything you are is because of me. Your business sense, your survival instinct, your ability to see through lies, all me. No, I said firmly. Those are the parts of me that survive despite you, not because of you. We'll see. When I testify, when I tell them everything, how you seduced Harold to turn him against me, how Lauren always hated me for not being her real mother, how this is all an elaborate plot to steal my money. What money? You mean Lauren's trust fund, my inheritance, the foster payments meant for my care. She laughed. You always were too smart for your own good, but intelligence without wisdom is dangerous, Annie. You should have taken my deal, wired the money, and walked away. Now you'll see what happens when you cross me. Is that a threat while being recorded from federal prison? A pause. Then, not a threat, a promise. I still have friends, Annie, people who owe me. People who need me to stay quiet about their own sins. This isn't over. The line went dead. Patricia immediately contacted the FBI about the call adding witness intimidation to Margaret's growing list of charges. But it was the photograph that changed everything. Within 48 hours, the FBI had connected Thomas Brennan to Margaret through financial records. 3 payments of $10,000 each made in the weeks before Diana's accident. Circumstantial, but damning. They offered Brennan a deal. Testify against Margaret, and they'd recommend moving him to a minimum security facility for his remaining years. He took it immediately. His recorded confession was chilling. Margaret had paid him $30,000 to cause a fatal accident, make it look like drunk driving. Both parents had to die or the trust would revert to Diana's family, not Margaret. She was specific, Brennan said on the tape. Even chose the intersection, knew their routine. Wednesday night dinners at the same restaurant, same route home. All I had to do was wait. Lauren broke down completely when she heard it. 20 years of believing her parents' death was a tragic accident. 20 years of Margaret playing the grieving sister-in-law while spending their blood money. She killed them. Lauren sobbed in my arms. She actually killed them. For money. My whole life is built on their murders. Your life is yours, I said firmly. What she did was evil. But who you are, the person you've become, that's despite her evil, not because of it. The murder charges were added to Margaret's case. Life without parole became the minimum she faced, but she had one more card to play and none of us saw it coming. Patricia got the call during dinner. Margaret's lawyer wanted to meet. She had information to trade. Names, dates, details of a massive foster care fraud ring spanning multiple states. Dozens of conspirators. Hundreds of victims. She wants a deal, Patricia reported. 25 years instead of life. Minimum security. In exchange for taking down the entire network. No, Lauren and I said simultaneously. But Patricia looked troubled. The FBI is considering it. This ring has stolen millions from the foster system. Hundreds of children affected. Margaret's testimony could save future victims. She's manipulating them even from prison, I realized. This is just another con, another way to avoid consequences. But as much as I hated it, I understood the FBI's position. Stop one criminal or stop dozens, justice for us, or justice for hundreds. The decision would come down to the prosecutor, and ultimately to us, the victims who'd have to live with whatever choice was made. As we left the restaurant that night, I found myself thinking about the woman in federal detention, still pulling strings, still playing games. She'd murdered Lauren's parents, stolen my childhood, drugged Harold, attempted to kill us all. But she was also the only mother I'd ever known for 25 years. The woman who'd taught me to tie my shoes and ride a bike, even if she'd done it for monthly checks. The complexity of that truth sat heavy on my chest. Whatever happens, Lauren said, linking her arm through mine, we face it together. Together. I agreed, touching the Celtic knot at my throat, thinking of Susan, of Harold, of Patricia, of Daniel waiting at home, of the real family built from the ashes of Margaret's lies. The trap had sprung. The prey was caught. Now came the hardest part, deciding what justice really meant when the criminal was also the only mother you'd ever known, and her cooperation could save hundreds of children from the same fate we'd suffered. The federal courthouse was packed for Margaret's hearing. Media outlets had picked up the story. Foster mothers, decades of fraud exposed by daughters she betrayed. Lauren and I sat in the front row, Susan beside me, Harold flanking Lauren. Our strange reconstructed family united against the woman who'd torn us all apart. Margaret entered in an orange jumpsuit, shackled but somehow still projecting arrogance. She scanned the courtroom until her eyes found mine and she smiled. That cold, calculating smile I'd seen 1,000 times growing up. The prosecutor, ADA Jennifer Martinez, stood to address the judge. Your Honor, we're here because the defendant claims to have information about a multi-state foster fraud conspiracy. She's offered to cooperate in exchange for a reduced sentence. And what is the government's position? Judge Catherine Chen asked. We verified portions of her claims. However, we have concerns about the defendant's credibility and continued attempts to manipulate the system, even from custody. Margaret's lawyer, Christopher Vance, objected. My client has provided names, dates, financial records. She's offering unprecedented access to a criminal network. A network she ran, Martinez countered. We're supposed to reward the architect of these crimes. Judge Chen reviewed the files before her. I'll hear from the victims before making any decision. Ms. Williams, Ms. Chen, would you like to address the court? Lauren and I had prepared for this moment, but standing before the judge, words felt inadequate. Lauren went first. Your Honor, the woman who calls herself my mother murdered my parents when I was 2. She stole my inheritance, poisoned me, and tried to frame my sister for embezzlement. But worse than all of that, she stole our ability to trust, to believe in family, to feel safe. Her voice cracked. I don't want her deal. I want her to face justice for what she's done. I stood next. Your Honor, Margaret Williams trafficked in stolen childhoods. Every foster child she defrauded, every family she destroyed, they deserve justice. But not at the cost of letting her manipulate the system one more time. She's not offering this information out of remorse. She's trading it like currency the way she's traded everything our entire lives. Then Harold surprised us all by standing. Your Honor, I was married to Margaret for 25 years. I watched her destroy our daughters while drugging me into compliance. If she knows about other criminals, it's because she trained them, taught them. Any network she's part of exists because she built it. Don't let her profit from her own evil again. Judge Chen nodded thoughtfully. Ms. Martinez, has the FBI been able to corroborate any of the defendant's information through independent sources? Some, Your Honor. We've identified several suspects based on financial records we subpoenaed. However, the defendant insists she has additional information she'll only reveal if a deal is finalized. Of course she does, Judge Chen muttered, then louder. Mrs. Williams, would you like to address the court regarding your offer? Margaret stood, chains rattling. Your Honor, I've made mistakes, but I have information about ongoing crimes against children. Dozens of operators still active in the system. Without my cooperation, they'll continue stealing from vulnerable children. Surely stopping future crimes matters more than punishing past ones. You created those future crimes, Lauren shouted, unable to contain herself. You trained those people. You built that network. Ms. Chen, please, Judge Chen warned, though her expression was sympathetic. Margaret continued unfazed. I'm offering complete cooperation. Names, methods, financial trails. In exchange, I'm asking for 25 years instead of life. I'll be 87 when I'm released. Hardly a threat to anyone. You threatened my birth mother last week, I interjected. From prison, with a smuggled phone. Margaret's lawyer objected, but Judge Chen overruled him. I've seen the reports of witness intimidation, Mr. Vance. Your client's behavior in custody is relevant to this discussion. The judge deliberated for a moment, then made her decision. Mrs. Williams, I'm inclined to allow you to provide your information. However, any deal will be contingent on the value and accuracy of that information. You'll be deposed under oath with full understanding that any lies will result in additional charges. Margaret smiled triumphantly, but Judge Chen wasn't finished. Furthermore, you'll wear a monitoring device during all depositions. Any attempt to manipulate, threaten, or deceive will void any potential agreement. And Mrs. Williams, the maximum reduction I'll consider is 40 years instead of life. You'll still die in prison, just perhaps not as soon. The smile vanished from Margaret's face. That's not what we discussed. You're a serial manipulator who murdered 2 people and attempted to murder your own daughters, Judge Chen said coldly. You're fortunate I'm considering any reduction at all. Accept these terms or face trial with life without parole on the table. Margaret huddled with her lawyer, whispering furiously. Finally, Vance stood. My client accepts the court's terms. What followed was 3 weeks of depositions. Margaret revealed a network of 15 individuals across 6 states, all involved in foster care fraud. She detailed methods for falsifying documents, hiding funds, and selecting vulnerable children least likely to report abuse. But she also revealed something unexpected. She wasn't the architect of the network. She'd learned from someone else, someone still active, someone she called the matron. She recruited me in Atlanta, Margaret testified, taught me the system, showed me how to maximize profits while minimizing risk. I was her star pupil for years. And this matron, where is she now? Martinez asked. Running a group home in Texas, still training new operators, still stealing from children. Margaret leaned forward. But I'll only give you her real name if my deal is honored. It was another manipulation, but an effective one. The FBI confirmed that several group homes in Texas had suspicious financial patterns matching Margaret's described methods. Children were at risk right now. I watched from the observation room as Margaret played her final card. Even facing life in prison, she was still trying to control the game. But something had changed. The investigators weren't hanging on her every word anymore. They were cross-referencing, verifying building cases independent of her testimony. Patricia explained it to us over dinner. She overplayed her hand. By revealing the network's existence, she gave the FBI enough to investigate on their own. They don't need her as much as she thinks. Sure enough, within a week, the FBI arrested 11 members of the network based on financial evidence alone. The mysterious matron revealed to be a woman named Dorothy Vance. No relation to Margaret's lawyer, was caught trying to flee to Mexico with $600,000 in cash. Margaret's leverage evaporated. The network was crumbling without her full cooperation. And then Dorothy Vance made her own deal, providing evidence of Margaret's role, not just as a participant, but as one of the network's most vicious operators. She was special, Dorothy testified via video link. Most of us just took the money, but Margaret enjoyed the psychological part, breaking those kids, making them grateful for scraps while she lived off their checks. She'd brag about it at our meetings. The final blow came when Thomas Brennan testified about Diana and Robert's murder. He'd kept receipts, photos, even a recording of Margaret explaining exactly how she wanted the accident staged. She was specific about the timing, he said, his gravelly voice filling the courtroom. Had to be after they met with the lawyer, but before the trust documents could be filed. She knew their whole schedule. Knew they'd eaten at the same restaurant every Wednesday for 3 years. Even knew what wine they'd order and how it would affect blood alcohol readings. Lauren had to leave the courtroom during his testimony. I found her in the bathroom sobbing. They had a routine, she whispered, a weekly date night, and she used it to kill them. The trial itself was almost anticlimactic after that. Margaret's lawyer tried to argue diminished capacity, claiming she'd been driven to crime by poverty and desperation. But the evidence showed calculated cruelty spanning decades. When Margaret took the stand in her own defense, she made one final attempt at manipulation. Everything I did was for my family, she said, fake tears streaming. I know I made mistakes, but I loved my daughters. I gave them everything. With their own money, Martinez countered. Money you stole from them and dozens of other children. I gave them a home-structured discipline. You gave Anne-Marie lies about her birth mother. You gave Lauren lies about her parents' death. You gave Harold drugs to keep him quiet. What part of that is love? Margaret's mask finally shattered completely. They were ungrateful, all of them. I deserved compensation for everything I sacrificed. What did you sacrifice? Martinez pressed. My freedom, my youth. Do you know what it's like raising someone else's brat? Pretending to love a child that isn't yours. I deserved every penny. The courtroom gasped. Even her lawyer looked horrified. Margaret had finally told the truth, and it was uglier than even I had imagined. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. Guilty on all counts: foster fraud, trust theft, embezzlement, forgery, wire fraud, attempted murder, and first-degree murder for Diana and Robert Chen. As the bailiffs prepared to lead her away, Margaret turned to Lauren and me one last time. "You'll never be free of me," she hissed. "Every success you'll wonder if it's because of what I taught you. Every relationship you'll question if it's real. I'm in your DNA, girls. You can lock me up, but you can't lock out what I made you." "You're wrong," I said clearly. "You didn't make us. We made ourselves despite you, and we'll spend the rest of our lives proving that love is stronger than your hatred. That truth defeats lies. That chosen family means more than blood. The judge's gavel came down. Margaret Williams, I sentence you to life in federal prison without the possibility of parole. May God have mercy on your soul, because this court will not. As they led her away, still screaming threats and curses, I felt something I hadn't expected. Not satisfaction or relief, but sadness. Sadness for the mother she could have been, for the family we might have had if greed hadn't poisoned her soul. But mostly I felt free. 28 years of manipulation ended. The woman who'd stolen our childhoods would spend her remaining years in a cell while we got to build the lives she'd tried to deny us. Outside the courthouse, reporters waited, but we pushed past them. This victory wasn't for public consumption. It was for every foster child she'd stolen from. For Diana and Robert Chen, for Harold's lost years, for Susan's stolen daughter, for the family Margaret had tried to destroy but had instead made unbreakable. It's over, Lauren said, squeezing my hand. No. I corrected, thinking of Susan waiting to build a relationship, of Harold finally free to be himself, of the business I'd built and the marriage I'd fought for. It's just beginning. 6 months after Margaret's sentencing, I stood in the doorway of what had been her house, now legally transferred to Lauren as partial restitution from her parents' estate. We decided to clean it out together to face the ghosts before Lauren sold it. I found more letters, Harold called from the attic. He'd insisted on helping, saying he needed to reclaim parts of himself that had been buried in this house, hidden in the insulation. The letters were from Susan, written to me over the years, but also letters from Diana to Lauren, sent before her death, letters from my biological grandparents, even letters from distant relatives wondering why we'd cut contact, all intercepted, all hidden, all representing connections Margaret had severed to maintain control. She stole our entire extended family, Lauren said, reading a birthday card from a cousin we'd never known existed. There are people out there who tried to love us and we never knew. Daniel arrived with boxes and cleaning supplies, followed by Patricia and, surprisingly, Susan. She'd flown in from Boston, insisting she wanted to help. You don't have to do this, I told her. Yes, I do, Susan said firmly. This house held my daughter prisoner for 25 years. I want to help free you from it. We worked systematically, room by room. In Margaret's bedroom, hidden behind a false panel in her closet, we found the most damning discovery yet: journals dating back 30 years. Not evidence of crimes. The FBI had those. These were different. These were her thoughts, her plans, her true feelings about the children she'd raised. I flipped through pages, my stomach turning, entry after entry detailing her disgust at having to pretend affection, calculations of how much money she could extract, plans for psychological manipulation. One entry from my 16th birthday: A insisted on celebrating with friends. Had to play loving mother for 3 hours. The performance exhausted me, but the foster checks increase next month now that she's 16. Worth the charade. Lauren found entries about her parents. D getting suspicious about trust withdrawals. May need to accelerate timeline. T says he can make it look accidental for $30K. Small price for permanent access to L's inheritance. She planned it for months, Lauren whispered. My parents' murder was just a business decision to her. Harold discovered the drugs hidden throughout the house. Prescription bottles with various names. Enough benzodiazepines to keep someone compliant for years. The FBI took it all as evidence, but seeing the sheer volume made us understand how thoroughly she'd controlled him. In what had been my childhood room, now stripped of any personality, Susan and I sorted through boxes of school papers Margaret had saved. Not out of sentiment, we realized, but as props for her performance. Look at this, Susan said, holding up a kindergarten drawing of a family. Stick figures labeled Mommy, Daddy, Lauren, and off to the side smaller Annie. You drew yourself apart even then, she observed sadly. I always knew I didn't quite fit, just didn't know why. Susan pulled me into a hug. You fit with me. You always have, even when we were apart. By evening, we'd filled a construction dumpster with the detritus of false life, furniture purchased with stolen money, clothes bought to maintain appearances, photos of fake happy moments. But we also found things worth saving. Harold's father's watch hidden away when Harold started questioning things, Diana's jewelry box, which rightfully belonged to Lauren, and surprisingly, a box of my childhood drawings that seemed to have been kept not for show, but hidden away where only Margaret would see them. Why keep these, I wondered aloud. Patricia Ever, the analyst, had a theory. Even sociopaths have moments of, not conscience exactly, but awareness of what they're missing. She couldn't feel maternal love, but she knew it existed. These drawings might have been her, trying to understand what she couldn't feel. It was the closest to sympathy I could muster for the woman who'd raised me. As we prepared to leave for the night, planning to return tomorrow for final cleaning, my phone rang. The federal prison. "Are you cleaning out my house?" Margaret's voice was calm, too calm. "Lauren's house," I corrected. "The court awarded it to her as restitution." "Finding all my secrets are you, feeling superior." "Feeling free," I said honestly. "Free of your lies, your manipulation, your poison. You'll never be free of me. I raised you, shaped you. Every success you have." I hung up, just like that. No dramatic goodbye, no final confrontation, just an end to her voice in my life. "Who was that?" Daniel asked. "No one important," I said, meaning it. "Just noise." We returned the next day with more help. The FBI victims coordinator had connected us with 3 other foster children Margaret had defrauded over the years. They came to bear witness to see the house where their money had gone. One of them, Marcus, now a social worker, stood in the living room where Margaret had hosted holiday parties with stolen funds. "I wore shoes with holes while she bought Persian rugs with my foster checks," he said quietly. "Thought I was worthless. Took me 20 years to realize she was the worthless one." We invited them to take anything they wanted. Marcus chose a painting he remembered Margaret bragging about buying. Another took a china set. Small gestures of reclamation. By the end of the week, the house was empty. Lauren had decided to sell it with proceeds going to a fund for foster children aging out of the system. Turn Margaret's house of lies into something that actually helps kids, she explained. The closing happened quickly. A young family bought it, excited about the good school district and large backyard. They had 2 daughters. As we handed over the keys, the mother mentioned they were also planning to foster. "We want to give kids a real home," she said, "the kind where they know they're loved and wanted." Lauren and I exchanged glances. Perhaps the house could be redeemed after all. On the drive home, I realized something had shifted. The weight I'd carried for 28 years, the feeling of not belonging, of being insufficient, of owing something I could never repay, was gone. In its place was lightness, freedom, possibility. That evening, our strange assembled family gathered for dinner at my apartment. Susan had extended her stay, reluctant to leave after finding me. Harold had cooked, discovering a talent for it once freed from medication fog. Patricia brought wine. Daniel played host. "To real family," Lauren said, looking at me. "To all of us," I concluded. "The family we chose, the family we found, the family we're building." As we clinked glasses, my phone buzzed. Another call from federal prison. This time, I didn't even look. I simply blocked the number. Some voices don't deserve space in our lives, no matter how long they've been there. "Everything okay?" Susan asked, noticing the phone. "Everything's perfect," I said, meaning it. Absolutely perfect. Looking around the table at these people, some related by blood, some by marriage, some by choice, all by love, I saw what Margaret had never understood. Family isn't about possession or control or manipulation. It's about choosing each other again and again, especially when it's hard. The woman in federal prison thought she'd shaped us, but she'd only shown us what not to be. We'd shaped ourselves in opposition to her darkness, finding light she couldn't extinguish, no matter how hard she tried. And that more than any verdict or sentence was our true victory. 1 year after the wedding, where everything changed, Daniel and I stood in the same venue renewing our vows. This time the room was filled with genuine love instead of hidden agendas. Lauren stood as my maid of honor, radiant in a dress she'd bought with her own money from her recovered trust fund. She'd returned to Columbia determined to finish her degree without Margaret's shadow. "For my real parents," she'd said, "the ones who wanted me to succeed honestly." Susan sat in the front row, tears streaming as she watched the daughter she'd searched for finally get the wedding she deserved. Beside her, Harold looked healthier than I'd seen him in decades, clear-eyed and present. Patricia beamed from Daniel's side of the aisle, having become not just my mother-in-law, but my fiercest protector and advocate. "I never got to make a proper toast last time." Lauren began raising her champagne glass. "Too busy throwing drinks and calling my sister names, Margaret taught me." The room chuckled nervously, but Lauren smiled. "So let me try again. To Anne-Marie and Daniel, to the woman who paid for my life while I called her selfish, who saved me from poison meant for her, who showed me what real love looks like by forgiving the unforgivable, and to the man wise enough to love her. May your marriage be everything our family wasn't honest, supportive, and built on truth instead of lies." There wasn't a dry eye in the room. Even Marcus and the other foster survivors Margaret had stolen from were there, having become part of our extended chosen family. As Daniel and I exchanged rings again, I thought about the journey from that humiliating moment to this redemptive one. Margaret was serving life in federal maximum security, her network of fellow fraudsters dismantled. The foster system had implemented new safeguards based on our case. Hundreds of children would be protected because we'd fought back. But more importantly, we'd all healed. Not completely. Some wounds run too deep, but enough to build something beautiful from the wreckage. My business had thrived once I wasn't secretly funding 3 other people's lives. Lauren was excelling at Columbia studying law with plans to advocate for foster children. Harold had started volunteering at a men's shelter, helping others escape abusive situations. Susan and I met monthly, building the relationship Margaret had tried to steal. "I now pronounce you once again husband and wife," the officiant declared. This time, when we kissed, the applause was genuine. No hidden resentments, no secret schemes, just love. At the reception, I found myself at the same spot where Lauren had thrown champagne in my face. The stain had long since been cleaned, but the memory lingered. "Weird to be back here," Lauren asked, joining me. "Healing to be back here," I corrected. That moment led to all of this, to truth, to us becoming real sisters. "To Margaret finally facing justice," Lauren added. "Did you know she's tried to call me 17 times this month?" "She's called me 23 times. I've blocked every number." "Same. Harold says she writes him letters. He burns them unopened." We stood in comfortable silence, watching our chosen family celebrate. Then Lauren surprised me. "I've been thinking about forgiveness," she said quietly. "Not for Margaret. She doesn't deserve it. But for myself, for hating you all those years, for believing her lies, for that toast." "You were a victim too," I reminded her. "We both were." "I know, but I need to say it. I'm sorry, Annie, for all of it, and I'm grateful for your sacrifice, your courage, your ability to see past what she made me do to who I really am." "You're my sister," I said simply. "Not because Margaret stole us both, but because we chose each other. That's stronger than any lie she ever told." Susan approached with Harold, both smiling. "We have something for you," Susan said, producing 2 small wrapped boxes. Inside were matching bracelets, delicate silver chains, with 2 charms, a Celtic knot, like the necklace Susan had given me, and a small compass. "The knot for unbreakable bonds," Harold explained. "The compass, because you both found your way despite being given the wrong directions your whole lives." As we fastened them on each other's wrists, I realized this was what Margaret had truly stolen from us. Not just money or childhoods, but moments like this. Connections, celebrations untainted by manipulation. But we'd reclaimed them. Every birthday, every holiday, every ordinary Tuesday dinner was now ours to fill with genuine emotion instead of performed obligation. The photographer captured us in that moment, four people who should never have found each other bound now by something stronger than blood or law. Behind us, Daniel raised his glass to Patricia, who was regaling Marcus with courtroom stories, our unconventional family proof that love could triumph over even the most calculated cruelty. Later, as the reception wound down, I found myself outside on the terrace, where a year ago I'd fled in humiliation. This time I wasn't alone. Daniel stood beside me, solid and sure. "No regrets?" he asked. "We could have eloped, avoided this place entirely." "No regrets," I confirmed. "This place needed new memories, better ones." "Like our life," he said, pulling me close. "Better memories to overlay the painful ones." Inside, I could hear laughter. Real laughter, not the performed kind I'd grown up with. Lauren was dancing with one of Daniel's cousins. Harold was teaching Susan to waltz. Patricia was holding court at a table of lawyers, all fascinated by our case. My phone buzzed. Another unknown number from the prison's area code. This time I didn't even check it. I simply turned the phone off. Some ghosts didn't deserve haunting rights. "Ready to go back in?" Daniel asked. In a moment, I said, wanting to freeze this feeling, this lightness, this freedom. A year ago, Margaret had called me a fraud in white. She'd been right in a way. I had been fraudulent, pretending we were a normal family, that love could fix theft and lies, that sacrifice would eventually be appreciated. But that fraud was necessary armor until I could find the strength to live authentically. Now I wore white again, but this time there was no fraud. Just a woman who'd survived, thrived, and learned that family isn't about who raises you or shares your DNA. It's about who shows up, who fights beside you, who helps you burn down the lies to build something true. "Okay," I said to Daniel, "let's go celebrate with our family. Our real family, the one we'd chosen, the one that chose us back." As we walked inside, I saw Margaret in my mind one last time. Not the raging woman dragged from court, but the mother who'd taught me to ride a bike, even if she'd done it for show. Despite everything she'd given me, one gift, the strength to survive her. And from that survival had come everything else. Lauren, Susan, Harold's recovery, Daniel, Patricia, this whole beautiful, messy, chosen family. "Thank you," I whispered to the ghost, then let her go. The music swelled. Lauren grabbed my hand, pulling me onto the dance floor. Susan and Harold joined us, then Daniel and Patricia, then Marcus and the others. We danced badly and laughed loudly, celebrating not just a marriage, but a resurrection. From the ashes of Margaret's deception, we'd built something she could never understand or destroy, a family based on truth, choice, and genuine love. And that was the ultimate victory. Not her imprisonment or the recovered money or even the justice served. It was this, the laughter of real family, echoing in a space that had once held only performance and pain. The fraud in white was gone. In her place stood a woman surrounded by truth, wrapped in love, finally home. The family that raises you might build you from lies, but the family you choose can rebuild you with truth. Sometimes the most painful betrayals become doorways to the most profound freedoms. When someone shows you who they really are through their actions, believe them, and then decide who you want to be in response. Real love doesn't demand payment or performance. It simply exists, freely given and freely received. The greatest revenge against those who tried to break you isn't hatred or retaliation. It's building a life so full of genuine connection that their absence becomes not a wound, but a blessing. Did this story resonate with you? Have you ever had to choose between the family you were given and the family you needed? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found strength in Anne-Marie and Lauren's journey, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more stories of triumph over betrayal. Share this with someone who needs to hear that chosen family can be stronger than blood. Thank you for joining us today, and remember, you deserve relationships built on truth, not manipulation. Until next time, keep choosing love over lies.